Chapter 1630. When the dazzling white light began to fade, Noah, Gaia, and Alea returned to the pure white world. Noah opened his eyes with a complicated expression. Gaia, who was still holding Noah's hand, couldn't help but speak. After you were born, for your growth, the many worlds here sent you into one of them. After all, even though you've been bestowed with sufficient intelligence, emotions are something that can only be developed through contact with all sorts of people, Alea said. Although the worlds gave birth to you, they didn't want to treat you as a tool. For this reason, they gave you a good environment to grow up in. That is absolutely necessary. It is because of this that you were sent into that guild full of positive energy and grew up to be a happy child. Gaia smiled sweetly. As for us, we were given the mission of guiding you by the various worlds. That is why we were able to form a connection with you. Don't worry, I don't doubt your intentions. It's just that I didn't expect to have such a background. Noah could only bitterly smile. Moreover, even if you made me sound so powerful, I still couldn't do anything to those shadows. That is because your true strength hasn't been activated yet. Alea immediately said. No matter what, you are still a life formed from the fragments of a world. Although the original world has been destroyed, there is no doubt that your body contains the potential to become an existence that can rival worlds. In other words, little Noah, you have the potential to become an existence that can rival worlds. Gaia reached out a hand and pressed Noah's chest. Isn't it because you came into contact with that possibility that you realized your mission and discovered the existence of the culprit that destroyed the original world? Hearing Gaia and Alea's words, Noah couldn't help but speak. But, that possibility can't be activated at all. That is because the power you use to activate that possibility is too weak. Alea shook her head. That is a possibility that can rival an entire world. If you don't use the power of an entire world, you won't be able to activate it. Even if you are lucky enough to activate it, with your current human body, you will instantly explode from that huge possibility. Noah was shocked and felt a lingering fear. There was actually such a serious consequence? However, was it a possibility that could rival an entire world? No wonder the power of a sun couldn't be activated. Then what should I do? Noah said helplessly. Even if I can activate the possibility in my body, I won't be able to withstand it. Not to mention not being able to activate it, right? No problem. Gaia solemnly said. We have long been prepared. At this moment, the surrounding feathers that were dancing in the air began to rotate, flashing one after another. Gaia and Alea stepped forward at the same time. As though they were holding something, they slowly raised one of their hands. Wang! Suddenly, the entire space between the worlds began to tremble, and the ground emitted a blinding white light. Noah subconsciously squinted his eyes. Then, from the ground that was emitting the dazzling white light, a light source rose and appeared in front of Noah. Looking at the light source, Noah slightly widened his eyes. He saw that in the light source, there was a piece of crystal. It was a piece of crystal clear, pure and clean, as clear as water. That is... Noah said in surprise. Isn't that the center of Between the Worlds? Ever since Shadow appeared, the worlds hid the center of Between the Worlds to prevent Shadow from finding it. Alea said as if it was a matter of fact. No matter what, it is the center of the Between Worlds, the source of the imaginative power. Without the imaginative power, a mere fantasy would not have become a factor in the entire Between Worlds situation. And if Shadow finds the center of the world Between Worlds, it might be able to absorb the imaginative power produced by this crystal, causing more imaginative power to be filled with evil fantasies. Who knows? Gaia explained. Therefore, the worlds hid it. Now, it is time for it to be used. In the end, the origin of the world should be imaginative power. Illusions are just designs and accelerators. Alea was still the same as before, coldly saying something shocking. Since the so-called sovereignty of the sun has no way of drawing out the possibility in your body, then we will use the imaginative power produced by the center of Between the Worlds to convert the sovereignty of the sun into the sovereignty of the world. That will do. WH. What? Noah was really stunned. Sovereignty of the world? Not only will you convert the sovereignty of the sun into the sovereignty of the world, but in order for your body to be able to withstand the huge possibility of a world, you will also need to convert the favor you received from God, which is your ability value, into the favor of the world. Gaia raised her fingers and calculated. In addition, the power you received from God can also be converted into the power of the world. Sovereignty of the world, the power of the world, and the favor of the world can absolutely perfectly convert the possibility in your body into the power of a world. At that time, you will be able to stand on the same level as Shadow. Alea raised her eyes and looked at Noah. It is for this purpose that we suggested you to travel between the worlds and work hard to increase your strength. In the end, you will find a suitable power to convert with imaginative power and draw out the power in your body. Things are progressing more smoothly than we expected. Little Noah, the sovereignty of the sun, the power of God, and the favor of God that you received are all suitable to be converted with imaginative power and upgraded to the power of the world. Everything is on the right track. Gaia took a deep breath. Now, it is time to counterattack. Little Noah, are you ready? Hearing this, Noah raised his head and looked at the sky out of reflex. There, the red storm outside the powdery light film had turned back into the red shadow of the Grim Reaper. It was flying back and forth outside the light film like a swarm of locusts, making one's scalp go numb. However, the Grim Reaper's tide didn't have any thoughts of retreating. Presumably, the Grim Reaper's tide should have realized that Noah was the only existence that could threaten them, so they definitely wouldn't retreat before killing Noah, right? It was because of this that last time, when the Grim Reaper came out to hunt, Gaia and Alea hurriedly called Noah over and didn't hesitate to kill him once to avoid being discovered by the Grim Reaper. At the thought of this, Noah also took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and looked at the translucent crystal. What should I do? Relax your body. Alea directly said. Release your power, sovereignty, and favor. Noah nodded heavily and closed his eyes and the next moment, Noah's body flashed with a dim light. In the dim light, on Noah's body, a stone plate with 10 patterns connected to it, with a sun in the center and 24 engravings in the sun slowly floated forward. At the same time, on Noah's back, mysterious characters jumped up and lined up neatly. Like a stream of light, they flew out and circled around the stone plate. Seeing this scene, Gaia and Alea nodded at the same time. Leave the rest to us. Gaia said to Noah. Little Noah, don't worry, we will definitely succeed in turning your power, sovereignty, and favor into a power equal to the world. Will it take a long time? Noah pointed upwards. Will the light screen be able to withstand it? I don't know. The light film was formed by us fusing a trace of imaginative power into the Gate of Babylon. Even we were only able to temporarily leave our world and enter the world between worlds with the help of imaginative power, Alea explained. Once the imaginative power is exhausted, the light screen will disappear, and we will return to our original world. There is only one chance like this, and it can't be replicated again. We have to race against time and complete the imaginative power conversion as soon as possible. Gaia patted his chest. Well, in short, leave everything to us. Then what should I do? Noah frowned. Could it be that I'm just going to watch from the side? Gaia and Alea looked at each other. That's true. Gaia muttered to himself for a while before speaking. Since that's the case, little Noah, go and do what you want to do. Do what I want to do? Noah was stunned. No matter what the result is, this time, you have to face the disaster that is active in the between worlds. In the end, it would be good if you win, but if you lose, whether it is you or your family, friends, or lovers in the thousands of worlds, they will all die together. Alea reminded. Just do what you want to do, and don't leave any regrets. Noah was silent. Chapter 1631. In order to not leave any regrets. After telling Noah these words, Gaia and Alea no longer disturbed Noah. They controlled the center of the between the worlds to generate imagination and upgrade Noah's authority, sovereignty, and favor. Only Noah was left standing there, speechless. Regrets? Thinking about it carefully, Noah really had a lot of things that he was worried about. If this was really the last chance, then no matter what, Noah hoped to complete these things. Thinking about this, Noah silently thanked Gaia and Alea in his heart. Wang. As if they knew what Noah wanted to do the most at this moment, a feather emitting a soft white light lightly fluttered in front of Noah. Looking at the feather floating in front of him, Noah didn't hesitate to raise a hand and press on it. In the next second, Noah's figure turned into a light and flowed into the feather. Gaia and Alea, who secretly saw this scene, showed an expression that was expected. Sure enough, the thing he wants to do the most is go home. Strictly speaking, the guy between the worlds was Noah's home. Unfortunately, for Noah, there was only one place that could be called home. Gaia and Alea were very clear on this point. This was the only thing that wouldn't change no matter what happened, right? As the chosen one by the world to become Noah's only hope, Gaia and Alea could only silently bless this child. They hoped that in the end, Noah would not have any regrets. Walala. Before he could open his eyes, Noah heard a clear sound of waves. Among the waves, there were even some seagulls crying. Hearing these sounds, Noah knew he was back. Thus, Noah slowly opened his eyes. When he opened his eyes, Noah was immediately startled. This was because in front of Noah, a young and cute face was incomparably close. A pair of emerald green eyes were staring at Noah with curiosity. Oh. Mavis blinked. You're finally back. First generation. Noah hurriedly retreated a few steps, creating a distance between him and Mavis. However, Mavis seemed to not want to let Noah escape and closed in on Noah. Hey. Mavis was like a curious child. While closing in on Noah, she impatiently asked. Where did you go before? I searched the entire Sky Wolf Island and couldn't find you. Hearing this, Noah was puzzled by Mavis' question and curiosity at first, but then he realized. Before leaving this world, Mavis had used one of the 3 great spells of the fairy tale, called the Fairy Sphere, to freeze the entire Sky Wolf Island. This was an absolute defense spell that could even freeze time. In a situation where he couldn't break through it, where could Noah go? In the end, Mavis was stunned that she couldn't find Noah in the vicinity of the Sky Wolf Island. No wonder Mavis was so curious. However, Noah didn't answer Mavis' question and instead looked around. At this moment, Noah was on the beach of the Sky Wolf Island. Outside, there was a boundless sky and sea. As for the barrier of the fairy sphere, it had long since disappeared. As expected, the absolute defense spell has been removed. Noah muttered. 7 years have already passed outside? Mavis had said that if he wanted to remove the power of the fairy sphere, he would have to spend 7 years. Now, since the barrier of the fairy sphere could no longer be seen, it proved that this super spell had already been removed. Therefore, 7 years should have passed in this world. To be exact, it should be 7 years and a month? Mavis corrected. Since the power of the fairy sphere was removed, a month has already passed. This explanation wasn't out of Noah's expectations. It wasn't something that was hard to understand. Because time was frozen and needed 7 years to unfreeze, when 7 years had passed in the outside world, only a moment had passed in the Sky Wolf Island. At that time, Noah, who was on the Sky Wolf Island, had chosen to leave this world and head to another world. And when Noah descended into this world again, at least a month would have passed in this world. If the time on the Sky Wolf Island had been frozen, a month wouldn't have passed. Therefore, it was only natural that when time began to flow on Heavenly Wolf Island again, it would be when the fairy sphere was removed and 7 years had passed in the outside world. Under these circumstances, Noah once again arrived on the Sky Wolf Island a month later. That would naturally be 7 years and a month in the outside world. Then what about grandfather and the others? Noah somewhat hurriedly asked Mavis. What about the frozen companions of the fairy tale on this island? They left a month ago. Mavis answered Noah's question with a lively and cheerful voice. At that time, because they couldn't find you, Makarov and those children thought that something had happened to you during your battle with Akonarolia. They almost went to the Black Dragon of Silent Revelation. Then what happened afterwards? Noah asked. What happened afterwards? Afterwards, I told them that you had some matters to attend to and that nothing had happened. Only then did they feel at ease and leave the Sky Wolf Island and return to the guild. Mavis said with a beaming smile. Therefore, you have to thank me. Noah let out a sigh of relief and smiled gratefully at Mavis. Thank you, first generation. After saying this, Noah subconsciously reached out with his hand, wanting to pat Mavis' head. However, at this moment, Mavis seemed to have been electrocuted and fiercely jumped away, looking at Noah with a face full of fear. You mustn't touch me. Noah stared blankly for a moment before remembering and smiling embarrassedly. I'm sorry, I forgot that you're a specter and can't touch you. No, that's not the problem. Mavis shook her head and frowned, looking at Noah with an extremely serious expression. Isn't your physique able to eliminate the power of any magic? For an existence like me that doesn't even have a physical body, if I were to be touched by you, I wonder if I would also be eliminated. Noah scratched his cheek. That's impossible, right? I've never heard of a resistance to curses being able to eliminate the existence of specters. For an existence like me, I don't even know what kind of recognition will be given to me. If I'm considered to be an existence similar to magic or related to magic, then it's not impossible for you to eliminate me. Mavis shook her head without any room for discussion as she puffed up her cheeks. Moreover, I'm an elder. Casually touching an elder's head is an impolite thing to do. Elder, huh? Noah looked at the angry Mavis with an extremely strange expression as he muttered to himself, Don't worry, Mavis. No matter how you look at it, I'm the older one, right? Mavis looked at Noah angrily. You just said something impolite, didn't you? No. Nothing like that. Noah laughed dryly and hurriedly changed the topic. Since everyone has gone back, it's better for me to hurry back as well. I don't know what has become of Fairy Tale. After losing their main force for 7 years, I'm afraid that Fairy Tale has already encountered a lot of problems, right? Thinking of this, Noah could no longer sit still. Go. Mavis smiled tolerantly. Remember to send my regards to everyone in the guild. Noah nodded heavily and looked towards the ocean, slowly clenching his fist. He hoped that the guild would be safe. Chapter 1632. Fiori Kingdom, Villa Magnolia. Compared to 7 years ago, Magnolia was neither prosperous nor weak. It was still the same as before, as if nothing had changed at all. It was bustling with activity. On the streets, people were walking back and forth. Around them, there were shouts and hawking sounds coming from the stalls. People were laughing and chatting with each other, or patronizing the stalls. The noise was constant, revealing a vibrant vitality. This scene made people feel unusually warm. However, walking on this street, Noah frowned slightly. It was not that he felt uncomfortable, but the conversation of the people around him caught Noah's attention. Did you hear? The main members of Fairy Tale seem to have returned. Main members? That's right. Don't tell me you've forgotten that 7 years ago, the main members of Fairy Tale went missing after they went out to sea? Oh, I remember now. There was indeed such a thing. I heard that the missing members seem to have returned a month ago. So that means that the guild is preparing to rise again? How can that trash guild rise again? Even if the main members are back, what can they do? It has already been 7 years, right? Well, that's true. A trash guild will always be a trash guild. Yeah. Noah's frown deepened as he listened to the conversation. There was a hint of anger and helplessness in his dark and deep eyes. Sure enough, 7 years will definitely cause problems. Noah was already mentally prepared for this. However, after confirming this, Noah's mood was both helpless and relieved. He was helpless because this result did not change. As for the sigh of relief, it was naturally because of the news about Fairy Tale. Although he did not know the current situation of Fairy Tale, but from the conversation of these people, the guild seemed to still be alive. As long as the guild was still alive, it was fine. Now, Noah clearly knew what kind of existence he was, and what kind of fate he had to bear. Under such circumstances, if Fairy Tale did not exist, then Noah really did not know what would become of him. Fortunately, the worst thing did not happen. However, even if the worst did not happen, from the conversations of the people around him, he could tell that Fairy Tale was not in good condition. He wondered how his former companions were doing now. At the thought of this, Noah couldn't help but quicken his pace as he headed in the direction of the Fairy Tale Guild. Under the illumination of the sun, the signboard of the Fairy Tale Guild flashed with a dazzling light. A flag with the guild emblem of a fairy tale fluttered in the wind at the top of the castle-like building, silently announcing to the world that the guild that was once the #1 guild in the kingdom of Fiore was still alive and kicking. Noah directly walked into the guild and pushed open the door. If it was in the past, all the noises that belonged to Fairy Tale would have immediately entered Noah's ears. However, this time, such noises did not ring out. This was because the entire hall of Fairy Tale was extremely empty. There was not a single person in sight. Noah's expression immediately darkened. He silently lifted his foot and walked into it. Tap, 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 the clear sound of footsteps reverberated in the air, bringing about a lonely atmosphere. This was something that would never have happened in the previous Fairy Tale. But now, Noah felt like he was the only person in the world, and a sense of loneliness rose in his heart. This feeling of loneliness was broken in the next second by a voice. Noah? A trembling voice rang out. Hearing this voice, Noah's footsteps paused, and he immediately turned his head to look at the source of the voice. In the next moment, two figures appeared in front of Noah's eyes. They were two middle-aged men who were at least 40 years old. At this moment, these two middle-aged men were looking at Noah with an expression of disbelief. Their eyes were brimming with tears, as if they were in disbelief. Looking at the two middle-aged men, Noah hesitated for a moment, and spoke with uncertainty. Are you Makao and Wakaba? After hearing Noah's words, the two middle-aged men finally believed what they had seen. You're back. Noah. Makao was overjoyed. That's great. You're finally back. President and the others didn't see you when they came back, so we thought something had happened to you. Wakaba was also overjoyed. Looks like you're safe, that's great. Seeing Makao and Wakaba's joyous expressions, Noah's heart finally felt full. No matter what changes had happened to Fairy Tale, the only thing that mattered to him was the feeling of caring for his companions. Even after 7 years, it still hadn't changed. You're all old. Noah first sighed, then he thought of something and hurriedly asked. Right, where's everyone in the guild? Just as these words were spoken, an aged voice that was filled with surprise and joy rang out. Oh. Noah. You're back. Along with this voice, a short and old figure slowly walked out from the inner section of the guild. It was Makarov. Grandfather. Noah's heart suddenly calmed down. Where have you been? Makarov said reproachfully. I've been gone for a month. Mira and Lisana were worried to death. Makarov's words elicited an extremely strong reaction from Makarov and Wakaba. President, you haven't seen Noah for a month, but we haven't seen him for 7 years and 1 month. Yes, you're just worried, but we were once in despair. From Makao's and Wakaba's voices, Noah could clearly hear the excitement in their voices. That was true. To Makarov, Noah had only been missing for a month. However, to those who stayed in Fairy Tale, Noah had been missing for 7 years and 1 month. How could they not be excited? Fortunately, the members of Celestial Wolf Island Group had already returned a month ago. Otherwise, who knows how excited Makao and Wakaba would be at this moment. No matter what, it's good that you're fine. Noah was relieved. Even after 7 years, the guild still hasn't changed. Noah said this from the bottom of his heart. However, Makao and Wakaba refuted him. That's where you're wrong, Noah. Makao sighed. The guild has changed a lot. Didn't you notice that the members of the guild aren't here? Wakaba said helplessly. Apart from your Celestial Wolf Island group, there are less than 10 people left. The rest have all left the guild. So it's like that? Noah sighed faintly. It was natural for the guild to encounter such a situation. After all, if the main force wasn't here, how could the guild continue to be the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom? Without the main force, there wouldn't be any powerful magic shooters to complete the difficult missions. This way, the missions would decrease, the income would decrease, the management wouldn't be good, and the members would leave. Anyway, sit down first. Makarov looked at Noah. I'll tell you the details of the guild. Noah nodded. Chapter 1633. During these 7 years, many things had happened to Fairy Tail. Due to the need to remove the ice on Heavenly Wolf Island, Mavis had sunk the entire island to the bottom of the sea to prevent any disturbances or trouble. The disappearance of Heavenly Wolf Island was finally discovered a month after Noah's group left the guild. At the same time, the news of Heavenly Wolf Island being attacked by the black dragon Achinalia, who had destroyed a country in silent revelation, had also spread throughout the continent. Fairy Tail, who thought that the main members of the guild and Heavenly Wolf Island had been destroyed by Achinalia, fell into chaos and despair. In the end, all kinds of problems arose. For example, after knowing that the main members of the guild were no longer around, the number of requests for Fairy Tail became fewer and fewer, making it difficult for the guild to operate. Another example was the remnants of the Dark Guild and the Magic Order that had been annihilated by the Fairy Tail. They had also come knocking on the door and launched more than one attack. Facing all of this, the guild's situation worsened by the day, and finally, the guild's members began to withdraw. Now, aside from the main members who had met with misfortune on Heavenly Wolf Island, the guild only had less than 10 members left. Fortunately, Noah had a bad premonition before leaving for Heavenly Wolf Island. He had squandered all of his wealth to purchase large amounts of magic crystals and gave them to Makao, Wakaba, and the others for them to use when necessary. It was precisely because of these magic crystals that Fairy Tail was able to activate the runic defense system that Noah had left in the guild, blocking the attacks of many dark guilds and magic order. Not only that, when the guild was in a financial crisis, Makao and Wakaba had sold off a portion of the magic crystals and earned a lot of money, allowing Fairy Tail to survive until now. If not for those magic crystals, even if Fairy Tail was still around, they would still be in debt. They might not even be able to protect the guild building. The magic crystals you left behind gave the guild a chance to breathe. A trace of turbidity appeared in Makarov's eyes. On the other hand, as the guild leader, I didn't leave anything behind, causing the members of the guild to suffer greatly. Back then, I only thought that something would happen. I didn't expect something like this to happen. Noah shook his head. It's really great that I left something behind back then. You've been a great help, Noah. Makao patted Noah's shoulder. In these 7 years, I have more than once felt admiration and gratitude for your foresight. If it weren't for those magic crystals, our guild would have long since fallen into poverty, right? Wakaba bit his pipe as he exhaled a puff of white smoke. Even though, right now, our guild is also very poor and very weak, that's right. In the past, Noah had long since used up all the magic crystals he had left behind. Coupled with the withdrawal of a large number of members, Fairy Tail had really fallen into a state of poverty. If Noah's group still hadn't returned, Makao and Wakaba would have had no choice but to borrow money from others. They might have even sold the guild building, right? No matter what, the members of the Heavenly Wolf group had returned at just the right time. It's really great that we didn't sell the guild building. Makao nearly cried. Otherwise, as the 4th-generation guild leader, I wouldn't have the face to meet you. You only became the guild leader because no one in the guild had more experience than you. You don't have to talk about it all the time. Wakaba unhesitatingly tore down Makao's mask. Now that the guild leader and Noah have returned, do you think you still have a share in the guild leader's position? Shut up. Of course, I know that. Makao flew into a rage out of humiliation. I'm just saying it for fun. Can't I? The two veteran members immediately started arguing in front of Makarov and Noah. Noah and Makarov didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but at the same time, they let the two go. Since everyone has returned, where are the others? Noah looked at Makarov. Why don't I see anyone? Right, you still don't know about this matter. Makarov finally remembered this matter. He picked up a glass of wine and took a swig as he explained, that's right. Everyone went to cultivate. Cultivate? Noah was surprised, but immediately understood. So that's how it is. Are you planning to get back the 7 years of blank time? In this era, the main members of Fairy Tail were still as strong as they were 7 years ago. In other words, everyone else had obtained 7 years of growth time. Only the main members of Fairy Tail didn't have the slightest bit of growth in these 7 years. I'm afraid that Naz, Gray, and the others, who were able to occupy the first line of combat power in Fairy Tail, have already been reduced to the level of slightly stronger magic shooters in this era? If they didn't cultivate properly and got back the 7 years of blank time, even if the main members returned, there wouldn't be many people who would entrust them with difficult tasks. This was also the reason why people thought that even if the main members returned, Fairy Tail would still be a trash guild. Now, Fairy Tail is no longer the #1 guild in the kingdom. Instead, it has become an existence at the bottom. Makao complained. For example, Lamia Scale and a Blue Pegasus have now far surpassed us. Especially Lamia Scale, they are now the #2 guild in the kingdom. They are much stronger than us. No matter what, in Lamia Scale, there is still a Tura. Wakaba shrugged. They have a member of the top 10 Saint Magicians and a combat expert like Leo. It's impossible for them not to be strong. #2 in the kingdom? Noah noticed another detail. Then, who is the #1 in the kingdom? I heard that it was a very small guild 7 years ago. Makarov said with an indifferent attitude as he continued to drink his wine. However, that guild changed its leader in these 7 years and also brought in 5 very powerful magic shooters. As a result, it developed to the point where it is now the #1 guild in the kingdom. In other words, it's that guild that replaced us, right? Noah looked at Makao. What is that guild called? The guild is called Saber-Tooth. They are very powerful. Makao stroked his chin. In my opinion, that guild is much stronger than when we were at our peak 7 years ago. Not to mention Saber-Tooth, even Lamia Scale, and a Blue Pegasus are much stronger than we were in the past. Wakaba said with annoyance. At least, I don't think that we can fight them after training for a few months. Yes, yes. Makao nodded. Even if it is Noah, I don't think he can do anything to them now. A gap of 7 years is too serious. Wakaba said jokingly to Makarov. Leader, why don't we learn from Saber-Tooth and change the leader? Maybe we can return to our peak in a short time. Wakaba's words made Makarov stop drinking and narrow his eyes. You reminded me. Makao and Wakaba were startled. At this time, Makarov suddenly said to Noah. Let me show you something. Noah was also stunned. Something? What thing? Chapter 1634. Magnoria, Fairy Tail Guild. This was the underground of the guild. Under Makarov's lead, Noah walked down the stairs in the dim tunnel. Looking at Makarov, who was leading the way, Noah hesitated for a moment before he chose to speak. Grandpa, what are you going to show me? Makarov didn't turn around or answer. He just kept walking down the stairs. After a while, Makarov spoke. On Sirius Island, you once brought back a young man, right? Makarov's words made Noah's expression freeze slightly. That young man seems to be the black magician Jerf who existed 400 years ago. Makarov's voice became solemn. Is this true? I don't know. Noah shook his head. But Hades did call him Jerf. If that person said so, then it's true. Makarov smiled bitterly. As expected, Jerf has always been cursed by God and managed to survive. His words made Noah raise his eyebrows in surprise. Grandpa, you know that Jerf has been cursed by God? Not only do I know that Jerf has been cursed by God, but I also know the true form of the curse on him, Makarov said in a deep voice. That is the curse of the god of Enxalam. God of Enxalam? Noah was stunned. Enxalam is the god of life and death, Makarov said. 400 years ago, because Jerf conducted research on life and death, he seriously violated the domain of the god of Enxalam and was cursed by that god. That is an ancient curse called the curse of contradiction. Makarov's voice became extremely solemn. If the person who receives this curse respects life, then he will take away the lives of those around him. The more he respects life, the more the curse will release the energy of death, causing a lot of deaths and injuries around the cursed person. On the other hand, if he doesn't respect life, then he won't release the energy of death. That is why it is called the curse of contradiction. And this curse, in addition to taking away the lives of others, can also give the cursed person an immortal life. Makarov sighed. The reason Jerf was able to survive 400 years ago is because of the power of this curse, right? Noah suddenly recalled the scene when he met Jerf on Sirius Island. At that time, Jerf did release a huge amount of energy of death, causing the life around him to be devoured. At that time, apart from Noah and Wendy who was protected by Noah, all the life around them was taken away. Is that the curse of the god of Enxalam? Noah couldn't help but mutter. What a vile curse. The curse would only take away the lives of others if it respected life. Didn't that mean that the more the cursed person cherished others, the more he would take away the lives of those he cherished? Such a vicious curse could no longer be described as a bad taste. The reason why Jerf was so desperate and agitated to beg Noah to kill him was because he was tortured by this curse, right? Moreover, the most vicious black magic shooter in history was someone who respected life. That was equally shocking. If it wasn't because he respected life, then Jerf wouldn't have triggered the energy of death on Sirius Island that almost affected Noah, right? What a vile hobby, Makarov heard Noah's mutterings clearly. After a moment of silence, Makarov spoke calmly. The first generation was also cursed by that vile hobby. Noah suddenly raised his head and looked at Makarov in shock. What did Makarov say just now? The first generation was cursed as well? Was he cursed by the god of Enxalam? It can't be, right? That was before the creation of fairy tale. Makarov didn't seem to know how shocked Noah was at this moment. He continued to walk down the stairs and began to tell his story. He continued to walk down the stairs. 100 years ago, the first generation was just a member of a small guild. At that time, the magical world wasn't as orderly as it is now. There were all sorts of conflicts and even killings between guilds in order to fight for territory, resources, and commissions. This made the era very chaotic. Makarov's voice rang clearly in the passage. At that time, the guild that the first generation was in was destroyed because of a dispute. The first generation then wandered to Sirius Island and lived there. After that, the first generation met 3 treasure hunters who came to Sirius Island to look for treasures. They left Sirius Island together and came to Magnolia. Makarov paused slightly. Along the way, the first generation and the 3 treasure hunters met an incredible black magic shooter, and learned magic from him. Black magic shooter. Noah's eyes began to sparkle. That so-called black magic shooter should be Jeffrey, right? Did that mean that the first generation learned his magic from Jerf? This was yet another shocking fact. At that time, Magnolia was under the control of a dark guild, and the lives of the people were very difficult. Makarov continued. In order to save Magnolia from the hands of the Dark Guild, the first generation used an incomplete black magic. In the end, he paid the price of his body being unable to grow. So, the reason why the first generation's body was so petite was because of this? After that, the first generation and the 3 treasure hunters created Fairy Tale, and became the 4 founders of Fairy Tale. Makarov glanced at Noah. Among them, there was Hades, whom you defeated. In addition, my father, your great-grandfather, Yuri Doria, was also among them. After that, everything in Fairy Tale was on the right track. The first generation also worked hard on various activities for the development of Fairy Tale. Makarov closed his eyes. Until one day, the first generation met Jerf again, and learned something from him. Hearing this, Noah understood. Seems like you've guessed it. Makarov's voice sounded a little old. That's right, the first generation's body didn't stop growing. Instead, like Jerf, he was cursed by the god of Anchtherum, and became immortal. But, isn't that a little strange? Noah couldn't help but ask. Since he's immortal, why did the first generation die? That's because the god of Anchtherum's curse will cause those who cherish their lives to harm those around them. In order not to harm his companions in the guild, the first generation left the guild, found Jerf, and asked him to kill him, Makarov explained. But, Jerf asked the first generation to kill him if there was a way. As 2 people with immortal lives, both the first generation and Jerf couldn't kill each other. Because of that, they were heartbroken that each other didn't cherish their own lives. Makarov shook his head and sighed. In the end, this action triggered the curse of the god of Anxalam, who both respected each other's lives to the greatest extent, causing the 2 of them to start taking each other's lives at the same time. Take each other's lives at the same time? Noah frowned. But, the first generation and Jerf are both immortal, right? They can't be killed, right? That's right. Makarov nodded. Therefore, the curse of contradiction created an even greater contradiction, allowing the side with the stronger curse to take away the other side's life that should have been immortal. In other words, only one of them died in the end. There was no need to explain who that person was. That was how the first generation was killed by Jerf's curse. Chapter 1635. In the dim passageway, a silent atmosphere began to pervade. Noah and Makarov were still walking down the stairs, and the atmosphere seemed a little heavy. Noah lowered his head slightly as he pondered over the secret that Makarov told him. At the same time, he smiled bitterly to himself. Who would have thought that in less than a day, he would actually learn so many secrets? Noah only found out about his real identity and mission today, including the secrets and disasters of the many worlds in Between Worlds. Now, after returning to the guild, he found out about such secrets in Fairy Tale. If it weren't for Noah's strong mental fortitude, he wouldn't have been able to digest so many things in such a short time. And that wasn't the end of it. Makarov intended to tell Noah's secrets, and that wasn't all. Everyone thought that the first bloodline had passed away, Makarov said abruptly. But, in fact, the first bloodline didn't really die at that time. Noah was stunned on the spot, and he didn't know how to react. What's going on? Makarov seemed to have seen through Noah's confusion and explained the truth. At that time, the first bloodline was only in a state of suspended animation. His heart was still beating. Jerf sent the first bloodline, who was in a state of suspended animation, back to Fairy Tale. At that time, the second-generation guild leader, Presido, also known as Hades, discovered that the first bloodline wasn't dead, so he used the magic crystal in the guild's basement to revive the first bloodline. This attempt ended in failure. Speaking of this, Makarov clenched his fists with a heavy expression. However, Hades lived up to his reputation as a genius who was closest to the demonic abyss. Although his attempt ended in failure, he unexpectedly developed a magic spell that transcended eras by using the first generation's body that was sealed in a magic crystal and possessed the semi-permanent life support ability of the first generation. The 3 great spells above, Fairy Tale, Fairy Law, Fairy Glitter, and Fairy Sphere. Makarov said word by word. That is the permanent spell, Fairy Heart. Fairy Heart? Noah muttered softly. There was shock and astonishment in his voice. A spell developed from the semi-permanent life support ability of the first bloodline? Only the guild masters of Fairy Tale knew about the existence of that spell. We also called it lumen starlight, Makarov reminded him. You should still remember when Hades came to Magnolia and spent a lot of effort to kidnap our guild members, right? Of course, Noah remembered this matter. After all, at that time, Hades specially came to Magnolia because of Noah and spent a lot of effort to kidnap the members of Fairy Tale, forcing Noah to come out of town. At that time, the reason why Hades didn't dare to attack Magnolia directly and chose to go to such great lengths was because he was wary of the existence of lumen starlight, Makarov said. As long as that is there, no matter what kind of enemy we face, we have a chance of winning. Even if it's Jerv and Econarolia, it's the same. Makarov's words made Noah more or less silent. So, there was such a trump card in Fairy Tale? But, there was no way for others to know about it. Not to mention other things, just the lumen starlight itself was developed with Mavis' body as the center, and the principle of its establishment was because Mavis had been cursed by Anxalam. If this matter was spread out, it would definitely affect the entire Fairy Tale, right? Moreover, this permanent spell was developed with Mavis' body, which was equivalent to a human experiment. If the council knew about this matter, then Fairy Tale would very likely be banned. Not to mention, if lumen starlight was really a magic that could defeat even Jerf and Econarolia, then it would definitely attract the covetous eyes of all kinds of people, making Fairy Tale a target of public criticism all of a sudden. Apart from that, the various secrets related to lumen starlight would also cause all kinds of trouble. For example, if the world knew that the founders of Fairy Tale, like Mavis, Hades, and Yuri had learned magic from the fiercest dark mage in history, it was not impossible to report Fairy Tale and have the council demote Fairy Tale to a dark guild. So, this was a secret that only the guild leaders of each generation knew about, right? And now, since Makarov had told this important matter to Noah, it could only mean one thing. Grandfather, Noah said with a complicated expression. Are you preparing to retire? Because of the magic crystals you left behind, Fairy Tale was given a chance to breathe in these 7 years, which proved that you were farsighted. Makarov was silent for a while, then sighed. This old man is already old, and my grandson is so outstanding. It is time for me to retire. Noah opened his mouth, but in the end, he did not say anything. Just like what Makarov said, he was already old. If possible, Noah also hoped that Makarov would be able to enjoy his old age in peace and not have to worry about the guild's matters. He would be able to enjoy the happiness of his family at home. As for the guild, it was not like Noah had never been the leader of a guild. Was he afraid that he would not be able to do it? However, Noah did not know how long he would be able to be the guild leader. After all, not long after, Noah would also have to fight against the disasters that threatened the various worlds. At that time, if he succeeded, then it would not matter. If he failed, then Noah would be destroyed by Shadow, along with the myriad of worlds. Since that was the case, then there was no need to be calculative. If he won, then he would return to being the guild leader. If he lost, then he would disappear together. It did not matter how long it would last. Thus, Noah nodded heavily. I understand, Grandpa. The heaviness and vicissitudes of life on Makarov's face finally faded, and he smiled with some relief. Well, you don't have to worry. For the time being, I will stay in this position for a while. When there is a chance, I will announce this matter. While talking, the two finally arrived at the underground. At the end of the stairs, there was a palace that was not too vast. After passing through this palace, a door appeared in front of Noah and Makarov. Boom, with a heavy thud, the door slowly opened. What appeared in front of Noah was a vast basement. The basement was very empty. Only in front of them stood a huge crystal. And in that crystal, a young girl like a fairy was floating inside, naked. Her eyes were closed, and her face was serene. She was like a sleeping beauty, very beautiful. That is lumen starlight. Makarov looked up at the crystal and said very solemnly. It symbolizes infinity, the eternal magic that can produce inexhaustible magic, fairy heart. Now, I entrust it to you. Makarov looked at Noah, and his voice was unprecedentedly serious. "I hope you can guard it well and use it properly." Noah looked at the girl in the crystal and nodded silently. Chapter 1636. In the basement, a huge crystal shone in the darkness. Inside the crystal, a naked, seductive girl with her eyes closed was suspended in the air. That scene was both beautiful and sacred, causing others to be unable to produce the slightest trace of evil thoughts. After explaining everything, Makarov had already left. Thus, Noah was the only one left in the entire basement. Looking at Mavis floating within the resplendent crystal, he softly muttered, "Fairy heart?" It symbolized infinity, and was able to unleash eternal magic that would never run out. With this, even if I wanted to have everything, it wouldn't be difficult, right? Why was the third perpetual motion machine called the crystallization of dreams? It was because it could create infinite energy out of nothing. With the third perpetual motion machine, not to mention wealth, it was not impossible to create weapons that could destroy the world. Therefore, the third perpetual motion machine that was abused by malicious people would become a factor that led to the end of humanity, making Az-Dakaha the final trial of humanity. It was the same principle. For this world that had integrated magic into life, magic was an energy source, and could be said to be everything. With the ability to use eternal magic that would never run out, it would be easy to get whatever you wanted. However, like the third perpetual motion machine, this perpetual magic was a double-edged sword. If it was used well, it would naturally be able to unleash unimaginable miraculous effects. But if it was not used well, it would definitely be the same as the third perpetual motion machine that led to the end of humanity, becoming a factor that would destroy humanity. The existence that was related to infinity was basically like this, always influencing the direction of the world and humanity. In the world of Demon High School, the infinite dragon god Orpheus, who was above everyone, was like this. In the world where problem children came from another world, the third perpetual motion machine that became a factor of humanity's final trial was like this. In this world, the fairy heart, which symbolized infinity, was the same. Even if Noah had the third perpetual motion machine, didn't he also have the ability to influence the direction of this world and human society? The principle was the same. So, grandfather was right, if this thing was exposed, it would only be a disaster, right? Noah's heart was determined. If that's the case, it's not safe for it to stay here. No one knew that in fairy tale, there was such a basement. The entrance had always been sealed, only Noah and Makarov knew how to enter. Logically speaking, it should be safe for Lumen Starlight to stay here. However, no one could say for sure when it would be found. Rather than that, it is better to keep it by my side. After all, in this world, there was no safer place than staying by Noah's side. Although Noah had left his authority, sovereignty, grace, and even his treasure vault in the space between worlds, Noah's power was enough to deal with all enemies in this world. With the third perpetual motion machine, Noah's magic power, divine power, physical strength, and even mental strength had reached an unlimited level. With Noah's inexhaustible magic power like Lumen Starlight, once he used the strengthening magic, even if it could not strengthen his physical strength to the same level as when he had the ability value, it would certainly not be worse than Hercules in the current world in the form of a servant. In addition, Aster had recovered the power that even the Elven King, who was a world elemental, feared. Athena was also the incarnation of the Sword of Salvation. With Noah's power, if used with unlimited divine power, the power was definitely enough to destroy the gods. Therefore, even if the power, sovereignty, grace, and treasury were all left in between the worlds, Noah still had the power to enter the 4-digit ranks in the box. In this world, the power of the sorcerers could not be compared to the Shura gods in the box. At least, in Noah's view, S-level sorcerers like Alusha and Mira were probably at the bottom of the 5-digit ranks. The 10 great sorcerers were probably also in the 5-digit ranks, but there was still a big gap between them and the top 5-digit ranks of the gods. As for Jerf, the most vicious sorcerer in history, it was possible for him to be at the top of the 5-digit ranks, right? In Noah's memory, in this world, the only existence that could reach the 4-digit ranks was the black dragon, Akonarolia, who destroyed a country in Revelation. That was also the only existence that could pose a threat to the current Noah, right? In that case, Lumen Starlight was in Noah's hands, was it not safe? In view of this, Noah immediately decided how to deal with Lumen Starlight. Clang! With a flash, a dark gold card appeared in Noah's hand. It was the gift card. Because the Gate of Babylon was left in Between Worlds, Noah only had 4 items with him. 1. 2 elven magic equipment. 2. A necklace with the effect of flight. 3. A ring that was condensed from the magic book of the Pied Piper of Hamel, and was connected to Pest's life. 4. A gift card that could be summoned at will. Without the Gate of Babylon, if one wanted to carry a magic crystal that was taller than a person, one could only use the gift card to store it. The gift card could store gifts. Other than gifts, it could also store food, water, clothes, and other daily necessities. If it's magic, it should be able to be treated as a gift and stored. Noah raised the gift card up high. The dark gold gift card instantly emitted a dazzling light that enveloped the huge magic crystal. The huge magic crystal that sealed the fairy-like beautiful girl immediately turned into a ray of light and was stored into the gift card. Noah smiled with satisfaction and allowed the gift card to disappear into the air. Then, he turned around and left the basement. After 100 years, Mavis' body finally left the dark basement. After leaving the basement, Noah returned to the guild. In the guild, there were still only 3 people, Makarov, and Wakaba. By the way, Noah, I have something to tell you, Makarov immediately said when he saw Noah appear. In the next 2 months, you should work hard on your cultivation and prepare to participate in the Great Demonic Battle Exhibition in 2 months. Great Demonic Battle Exhibition? Noah was slightly startled. What's that? In the years that you weren't around, the Fiori Kingdom had an annual ceremony to determine the guild rankings, Makarov spoke first. That is the real hell. Noah, you must not participate. Hell? Noah was curious. Why do you say that? Because. Wakaba said in a melancholy tone. In the past, when we participated, we were always last place. Is that so? Noah raised an eyebrow. So, in the past, Sabertooth was first place? That's right, Makarov said loudly. This time, we will also participate and become the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom once again. With that, Makeo and Wakaba immediately opened their mouths. Impossible. It's impossible. Ignoring Makarov and Wakaba, Makarov continued. Naz and the others are cultivating because of this matter. They have already been cultivating for a month. In 2 months, the Great Demonic Battle Exhibition will begin. After saying this, Makarov looked at Noah. How is it? Noah? Will you participate? Hearing this, Noah smiled. Of course. Although he didn't know what kind of guild Sabertooth was. But in Noah's heart, Fairy Tale would always be #1. If Fairy Tale isn't #1, then I will make it #1. This sentence made Makarov and Wakaba speechless. Makarov laughed out loud. Chapter 1637. On the sunny mountain path, flocks of birds chirped like a melody, constantly reverberating in the sky. On the mountain path, Noah was walking up step by step, heading towards the summit. Grandpa was talking about this mountain, right? While walking, Noah looked around and smiled with some nostalgia. In the past, I also cultivated in this area, Yi Futian said. In order to participate in the Great Magic Battle Exhibition 2 months later, Noah also left the guild and prepared to train for a period of time. Although, in Noah's view, in this world, apart from Econarolia, there should be no one else who could threaten him, but rather than hiding in the guild for 2 months, Noah still chose to come out and train. Of course, the current Noah didn't have to endure hardships for several years like before in order to learn magic. This time, Noah only intended to train his energy control. Ever since I got the 3rd perpetual motion machine spirit, although I have unlimited energy, too much energy has instead caused problems in control. Noah thought silently. If I can control more energy, then the portion that can be used at one time will also increase, right? In the past, because he was worried that too much energy would cause his body to explode, Noah could only forge an energy source to accommodate too much energy. He also didn't dare to use too much energy at one time, which was the so-called problem of exertion. But ever since he got the third perpetual motion machine spirit, Noah's body could hold unlimited energy, and could also use unlimited energy, no longer worrying about exertion. In other words, Noah's exertion also became unlimited. However, if the energy used was not controlled well, it would still cause damage to the body, as well as the mysterious runaway. This problem, when he was a child, Noah was troubled by it. Therefore, Noah understood that if he didn't properly train his energy control, even if he had unlimited energy, it would only cause a destructive disaster to the surroundings. When I was a child, my mana went out of control, and I almost destroyed the guild. Noah couldn't help but be speechless. If the current me were to go berserk with the unlimited energy in my body, the entire continent would be destroyed, right? For this reason, Noah needed to retrain his energy control. As long as Noah could control more energy without worrying about the problem of output and consumption, the more energy he could control, the more his strength would increase proportionally. For example, if one could use more mana, the power of magic and spells would increase. Another example was that the more divine power one could use, the more powerful the elven device would be. Now, consumption and exertion were no longer a problem that troubled Noah. The only problem that really troubled Noah was the amount of energy he could use at one time. Fortunately, this problem could be solved with diligence. It would be great if there was a strong enough opponent for me to practice with. Noah thought with regret. It had to be known that Noah, as a human, was also a godslayer. The stronger the opponent, the more he could improve his strength. In the past, Noah had fought many strong people in the box court, including the final trial of Absolute Evil and A Closed World, which allowed him to improve a lot. Among them, there was an improvement in his control of energy. Unfortunately, in this world, no one was qualified to be Noah's opponent except for Akonarolia. Incompetent opponents, no matter how many of them there were, would only be a negligible improvement to Noah. In the end, I can only rely on diligence. Diligence was diligence, but Noah didn't need to be nervous about anything now. With Noah's current strength, it was enough to deal with all the enemies in this world. The reason why he chose to be diligent was because he didn't want to waste these 2 months. And if possible, of course I want to train with my future wives and spend these 2 months together. Noah raised his head and looked in the direction of the mountain top, an expectant smile unconsciously appearing on his face. Mira and Lisanna are there, right? After Noah decided to train, Makarov told Noah the whereabouts of Mira and Lisanna. Noah came to this mountain because of this reason. It's just that I didn't expect that they would be training here. With this thought, Noah continued to walk in the direction of the mountain top. At this time, in the direction of the mountain top, a violent explosion suddenly shook, causing flames and dust to sweep up at the same time. Noah looked at the sudden explosion on the mountain top with a surprised expression, then smiled slightly. It seems that they are indeed training hard. Leaving such a sentence, Noah didn't waste any more time. He directly floated up and flew in the direction of the mountain top. Not long after, Noah arrived at the mountain top. A violent explosion occurred again, causing waves of fire to shake out like a storm, rushing in all directions. And in the flames, 3 figures were crisscrossing and crisscrossing. Among them, a figure rushed into the sky, directly rushed out of the waves of fire, spread a pair of wings, and flew up. It was a girl wearing revealing tights. Her arms were like the hands of a devil covered in scales, looking very ferocious, a pair of bat-like wings on her back, a tail like a crocodile, and hair straight to the sky, looking very evil. Impressively, it was Mira who used the receiving magic to receive the devil's soul of Satan. At this time, Mira was completely without her usual gentle and considerate appearance, transforming into a terrifying devil. A pitch-black energy light flashed in her hand, converging into the shape of a ball, raised high above her head, and fiercely threw it down. Whoosh! The pitch-black magic light suddenly turned into a meteorite, falling from the sky, carrying a sharp sound of breaking through the air, and in the vibration of the atmosphere, violently shot down to the waves of fire below. It's coming. A real man. In the waves of fire, two voices sounded in succession. The two voices belonged to Lysanna and Elfman. The three siblings of the Strauss family came to this mountain together and began to cultivate. Like Mira, Lysanna and Elfman both used the receiving magic. However, Mira received the soul of a devil, Lysanna received the soul of an animal, and Elfman received the soul of a demon. Thus, Lysanna received the soul of a cat, wearing a cat-like fur top and bottom, growing cat ears on her head, a cat tail on her back, and a pair of hands turned into cat claws, her figure nimbly leaping away. As for Elfman, he seemed to have received the soul of some kind of demonic creature, and one of his arms became extremely hideous and terrifying like a lizard's arm. He threw a punch at the ball of mana that was shooting towards him. Accompanied by an explosive sound, the pitch-black magic light exploded in front of Elfman's ferocious fist, setting off a shocking impact and flames. In the midst of the explosion, Elfman flew backwards like an arrow from a bow, fiercely smashing into a rock, causing cracks to appear on the rock. One could only imagine how much power Mira had used in that attack. "Brother Elfman?" Lysanna cried out in shock, then froze on the spot. Mira had appeared behind Lysanna at some point and raised her hand, facing Lysanna's back, gathering pitch-black magic light in her hand. "Wait! Sister Mira, wait!" Lysanna hurriedly raised her hand. "We surrender." The magic gathered in Myra's hand slowly dissipated as she sighed with a cold expression. "Really, the two of you. One only knows how to fight force with force and doesn't know how to dodge at all. The other is always distracted by big and small matters. If this continues, in 2 months, you'll be suppressed by others." Ugh! Lysanna was speechless. Only Elfman, who was paralyzed in front of the cracked rock, raised his hand weakly. "But, sister, fighting force is what a man is." Mira immediately glared at Elfman, causing Elfman to shudder and shut his mouth. Seeing this scene, Noah couldn't help but laugh out loud. This laughter was immediately heard by Mira, Lysanna, and Elfman. Seeing Noah floating in the air, unable to hold back his laughter, the siblings were first startled before they were pleasantly surprised. Chapter 1638. Big Brother Noah. Lysanna cheered, jumped up, and pounced on Noah. Noah hurriedly stepped forward, stretched out his hand, and pulled Lysanna into his arms. He immediately hugged her warm and fragrant body. "Noah! You're finally back!" Elfman shouted at Noah. "That's great! Now that's a real man." The indifference on Myra's pretty face eased up a lot. Then, her whole body flashed with a light, and the acceptance of Satan's soul was removed. She returned to her usual appearance. However, she was no longer wearing a princess dress that accentuated her gentle temperament. Instead, she was wearing a simple shirt and shorts. It was obvious that she was wearing this for the sake of the special training. Not only that, her soft white hair was tied into a ponytail with a hairband. Her bangs hung freely on her forehead and moved with the wind. Looking at Mira like this, Noah smiled with nostalgia. "It's been a long time since I've seen you like this. It's just like when you were young." When she was young, Mira also liked to tie her hair into a single ponytail. However, back then, she dressed like a delinquent girl and exuded the aura of a delinquent girl. Now, Myra's every move revealed her gentleness. Even the smile on her face was rather sweet and was no longer as bad as when she was young. Under such circumstances, Mira tilted her head and said with a smile, "But you're still the same as before. You haven't changed at all." "That's not it. I've changed too." Noah shrugged and pushed Lysanna away a little, pinching her little nose. "At least, when I was young, I didn't know that liking the two of you was such a blissful thing." Hee hee. Lysanna raised her head proudly and puffed out her chest. However, she was all smiles. Now you're regretting not liking me and big sister Mira earlier, aren't you? Mira seemed to be reminded by Noah's words and couldn't help but chuckle. Back then, you didn't even realize how Lysana and I felt. You made us feel so tired. Noah laughed dryly. When he was young, Noah was indeed a little brat who didn't know anything about love. Naturally, he couldn't understand the feelings of Mira and Lysana. On the other hand, Mira and Lysana had liked Noah since they were young, so it was inevitable that they would feel bitter because of the slow Noah. Well, let's not talk about the dark history of that time. In short, although it was a little embarrassing, it was still a good memory. Noah, who was carrying Lysana with one hand, extended his other hand to Mira. Come here, let me hug you. Mira obediently stepped forward and snuggled into Noah's embrace. She felt Noah's warmth with a serene expression on her face. It's good that you're back. I'm sorry, Noah said softly as he hugged his two fiancées tightly. Sorry for making you worry. I'm really worried, said Lysana, who was also leaning against Noah. She seemed to be complaining. When I woke up on Celestial Wolf Island and didn't see Big Brother Noah, I thought that something had happened to Big Brother Noah when you were fighting Econarolia. I almost cried. Econarolia. Noah narrowed his eyes, a cold glint flashing in his deep, dark eyes. That lizard does have some skills, but it's still far from being able to do anything to me. If there's a chance, I'll definitely make it pay for what happened that day. As expected of Noah. Elfman couldn't help but exclaim. You're a real man. Mira and Lysana nodded as well. Collect a debt from the Black Dragon who destroyed a country in Revelation? If these words were heard by others, they would definitely snort disdainfully. However, Mira and Lysana trusted Noah unconditionally. Therefore, Mira and Lysana didn't have any doubts about Noah's words. Not to mention, the battle between Noah and Econarolia was also witnessed by the main members of the Celestial Wolf group. Although the result was left undecided, the battle between Noah and Econarolia wasn't one-sided. Not only that, Noah also forced Econarolia into desperate straits several times, displaying extremely powerful strength. Mira and Lysana both believed that even if his opponent was the Black Dragon that destroyed a country, Noah wouldn't lose. After a heartwarming reunion, Noah, Mira, and Lysana parted ways. Are there only the three of you here? Noah's gaze swept across the Strauss siblings. Where are the rest? Naz, Gray, Elusha, Lucy, Wendy, Lebby, Hubby, Summer Lulu, Jet, and Troy went to the beach, Lysana replied obediently. Laxas, Fred, Bikeslow, and Abagrin went to another city. Gajil, Jubia, Kana, and Lily went to the mountain like us, but I don't know which mountain they went to. Elfman made a pose as if he was flexing his muscles. Uncle left not long after returning to the guild and continued to travel. The rest of our companions also went to other places to train. Mira clapped her hands as if she had thought of something. By the way, Noah, you still don't know, right? Kana and Kildas are actually father and daughter? Huh? Noah made a sound that was a little off topic as he spoke in astonishment. What did you say? Kana and Kildas are father and daughter, this is true. Lysana continued Myra's words. It is said that Kana came to the guild to find her biological father and then joined our guild, but she never had the chance to acknowledge Kildas. We were also shocked when we found out. According to her, it seems that she felt that Kildas was too high to reach, and she never had the chance to acknowledge him, so she dragged it out until now. Elfman folded his arms as he spoke logically. Originally, it seemed that if he succeeded in the S-level magic shooter promotion exam and became an S-level magic shooter, he would acknowledge Kildas as his father. That's not straightforward at all. Not like a man at all. Kana is not a man, she is a girl. Mira seemed to kindly remind him. Girls have a lot of difficulties, you can't laugh at them like that. She will acknowledge him after becoming an S-rank archmage? Noah rubbed his forehead. I see, no wonder Kana was so obsessed with becoming an S-rank archmage during the exam, and her behavior was so strange before the exam began. Although the process was tortuous, she still acknowledged him in the end. Lisanna puffed up her cheeks. Undoubtedly, we are all family. Wouldn't it be better to acknowledge him directly? Didn't Mira also say that girls have a lot of difficulties? Noah laughed. Moreover, do you think that all family members in the world are like you three siblings and have such a good relationship? No matter what, this is a good thing, Mira said regretfully. It's a pity that Kilda's immediately left the guild to travel and doesn't know about the Great Demon Battle exhibition. Otherwise, our chances of winning would be much higher. Don't worry, sister. Sister. Elfman patted his chest. Even if there is no uncle, you still have a man. Brother Elfman and I couldn't beat Mira even when we joined forces, and he still wants to replace Kilda's. What a fool. Lisanna hugged Noah's arm, her face full of joy. However, now that Brother Noah is back, our chances of winning have increased. Yes. Mira nodded, looking at Noah with a gentle gaze that could soften one's heart. Noah will definitely make us the number one in the Fiori Kingdom again. Is that so? Noah spread out his hands. Makeo and Wakaba both believe that even if it was me, I wouldn't be able to do anything if I had a 7-year gap. Those two fools don't know how powerful Brother Noah is. Lisanna shook Noah's arm and said expectantly. Moreover, since Brother Noah is here, why don't you train here with us? Fool. Noah pinched Lisanna's little nose again. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have come all the way here. Noah's words made Mira and Lisanna laugh happily. Noah is also here to train? Elfman grinned. That's a real man. Everyone burst into laughter at once. Chapter 1639. Not long after, the cool night fell. On the top of a mountain not far from Magnolia, a small camp was set up. The bonfire was burning slowly, illuminating the few tents that were set up at the side. In the night sky, the round moon shone with a bright and enchanting light. Together with the bonfire, it illuminated the entire mountaintop. And in one of the tents beside the bonfire, under the thin blanket, 3 figures were entangled with each other. This entanglement lasted until late into the night. It was only when the moon began to set that the undulating blanket gradually stopped. Noah hugged his 2 charming fiancées on his left and right, his heart filled with peace. Mira and Lisanna seemed to have lost all their strength from the torment. Their naked bodies were covered in sweat as they lay obediently in Noah's arms, gasping for breath. Their bodies couldn't move at all. Undoubtedly, Mira and Lisanna couldn't help but feel tired after going through so much training during the day and being tormented by their sweetheart at night. However, compared to exhaustion, the 2 delicate fiancés were more satisfied. Noah lowered his head and looked at Mila and Lisanna, who were lying on his left and right. Their exquisite and beautiful faces were flushed with intoxication. He reached out and stroked his 2 fiancés' heads. If you're tired, then hurry up and rest. Mira and Lisanna were still adjusting their breathing, but they shook their heads at the same time. Hey, big brother Noah. Lisanna wrapped her fair arms around Noah's neck as she snuggled up to Noah. Is there something on your mind? Noah, who was caressing Mira and Lisanna's heads, paused for a moment, but he recovered soon after. After a moment of silence, Noah spoke softly. Why do you say that? The one who answered wasn't Lisanna, but Mira. Because. Mira looked straight into Noah's eyes as if she was trying to see through Noah's heart. Today, instead of saying that you love us, it's more like you're acting spoiled towards us. Act coquettishly? Noah was dumbfounded. What kind of description is that? Big brother Noah, it's not realistic to continue hiding it. Lisanna's face was pressed against Noah's chest. I've already told you. Even if something happens to you, don't think you can hide it from the person sleeping next to you. Indeed, Lisanna had said the same thing many times, and Noah had also experienced it many times. Although it sounded like a sentence without any basis, for some reason, this sentence was unusually persuasive. At the very least, it wasn't the first time Noah realized that his feelings were easily discovered by Mira and Lisanna. I really can't hide anything from you guys. Noah was helpless, but he continued to stroke Mira and Lasana's heads lovingly. After hesitating for a moment, he sighed. It doesn't seem right to say that there's something on my mind. I just feel that a lot has happened today, and I'm a little tired. Tired. He was indeed tired. Not to mention the matter of the fairy tale and the fairy heart, just the things that he encountered and learned in the space between worlds were enough to make Noah feel tired. That was to be expected, wasn't it? If one day, someone suddenly told you that you had no parents, and that you weren't even born in your mother's womb, but an existence that was created, would you be able to accept such a thing at the first moment? Of course not, right? However, Noah accepted it. This was because Noah had long had a premonition that his existence was definitely not simple. If one day, someone told you that if you didn't stand up and fight against a terrifying enemy that had the power to destroy thousands of worlds, then not only you, but also your family, friends, lovers, and all the worlds that your companions existed in would be wiped out. Would you be able to make the decision to fight immediately? Of course not, right? However, Noah managed to do it. Because if even Noah didn't fight, then who else could? Moreover, Noah only wanted to rely on his own hands to protect the important people. So, Noah calmly accepted it all. If it was a normal person, facing all this, they would probably be in a mess right now, right? However, Noah didn't. When he was young, in order to control his own emotions and prevent them from causing his mana to go berserk and harm his friends, Noah had no choice but to strengthen his state of mind. In the world of the Black Bullet, in order to protect the unfortunate children, in order to survive in the chaotic situation, Noah used 1.5 years to stand out in the darkness of people's hearts. At this moment, the experience of the past had turned into the strongest will, allowing Noah to accept all this and bravely face it. However, that didn't mean that Noah wasn't tired. After shouldering so many heavy responsibilities, it would be strange if he wasn't tired. This kind of tiredness, after coming in front of Mira and Lisanna, could no longer be hidden. In front of his two beloved future partners, Noah unconsciously showed his tiredness. That was why Mira said that Noah was acting spoiled. However, to be more precise, it should be said that Noah was comforted by Mira and Lisanna. Mira and Lisanna seemed to be able to vaguely sense something and hugged Noah tightly, hoping to comfort Noah's heart. Leaning against Noah's chest and listening to Noah's heartbeat, Mira said softly, "If you're tired, then take a proper rest." Yes. Lisanna also couldn't help but agree. If it's Big Brother Noah, I believe that no matter what happens, he'll be able to solve it easily. The two girls were very considerate and didn't ask Noah about the things he was hiding in his heart. Since Noah didn't say anything, it meant that either it was something unimportant, or it was something that Noah had to solve alone. Although Mira and Lisanna felt sorry for Noah and wanted to help Noah, they couldn't help it. Just like how Mira and Lisanna could clearly sense Noah's thoughts, Noah naturally understood what his two fiancés were thinking. "All right, don't think too much," Noah said firmly as he hugged his two fiancés tightly. "Even if it's just for the two of you, I won't compromise with anyone." As he spoke, Noah stared at the top of the tent. His dark and deep eyes glowed with an unprecedented brilliance. Even if it's an existence that can destroy the world. Upon hearing Noah's words, Mira and Lisanna's hearts calmed down. "I know that you must have something very important to do." Mira looked up at Noah and revealed an extremely gentle smile. "I just hope that you can remember that no matter what happens, there are people here waiting for you to come back. Big Sister Mira is right. No matter what happens, we will wait for Big Brother Noah to come back." Lisanna nodded firmly. "So, Big Brother Noah, no matter what happens, you must remember to come back, okay?" "Of course." Noah couldn't help but kiss his two fiancés' foreheads. "I can't bear to give up on my two delicate fiancés." "Fiancés?" Mira didn't resist Noah's intimacy and only murmured longingly. "I wonder when I can become your real wife." Upon hearing that, Noah was stunned on the spot and fell into deep thought. Lisanna said with a hint of longing in her voice, "Come to think of it, in this era, we were already engaged 7 years ago." In the end, We haven't gotten married for 7 whole years. Looking at Mira and Lasana's longing expression, Noah couldn't help but recall Gaia and Alea's words. Don't leave behind any regrets? Noah mumbled and finally made up his mind. That's right. It's time for us to get married. This time, it was Mira and Lasana's turn to be stunned. Under such circumstances, Noah suddenly smiled. After the Great Demon Battle Exhibition competition, let's get married. The two sisters widened their eyes at the same time. Then, they smiled happily. Chapter 1640. The next morning. Wah. What? In front of the already extinguished bonfire, Elfman let out a loud cry filled with shock. We're getting married? Just as he shouted in shock, Elfman's head was viciously slapped, causing him to scream in pain. Why are you being so loud? Noah retracted his hand and glared at Elfman. Your sister and sister are still sleeping. Keep it down. Elfman immediately shut his mouth obediently with a resentful look on his face. Don't look at how big Elfman is, he is very afraid of Mira and Lysana. Especially Mira. When Mira was really angry, Elfman didn't even dare to take a deep breath. Noah, who knew Elfman's personality well, smirked. By the way, is it surprising that we've decided to get married? After hearing Noah's words, Elfman felt that he was making a fuss out of nothing. After all, Noah and the Strauss sisters were engaged. Since that was the case, it wouldn't be strange for them to get married at any time, right? Or rather, in the eyes of outsiders, Noah, Mira, and Lysana were already engaged 7 years ago, and they were only planning to get married 7 years later. That was already very slow. Of course, to the core members of the guild who were frozen on Celestial Wolf Island, Noah, Mira, and Lysana's engagement was only half a year ago. Even so, if there were no accidents, it would be time for them to get married in half a year. After all, Noah, Mira, and Lysana were already adults, weren't they? Is that so? Are my sister and Lysana finally going to get married? Elfman scratched his head. Although I knew that such a day would come, when I think of being the only one at home in the future, even a man would feel lonely. After marrying Noah, Mira and Lysana naturally wouldn't live with Elfman anymore. Ever since we were young, the three of us have never been apart. Elfman said emotionally. Now, sister and sister are both gone. I don't know when I'll get used to it. I'm sorry, Elfman. Noah smiled bitterly. I can only say that no matter what, I will make Mira and Lysana happy. That's enough. Elfman wasn't a wishy-washy person. After patting his cheeks, he pulled himself together. When do you plan to marry my sister and Lysana? Wait until the Great Demonic Combat Arts Exhibition competition is over. Noah smiled. First of all, I need to make Fairy Tale the #1 guild in the Kingdom of Fiore. Only then can I hold the grandest wedding and let those two sisters marry into my family. Oh, as expected of Noah, you're a real man. Elfman said with admiration. Oh, right, how are you going to solve the housing problem? You can't let sister and Lysana live in the guild with you, right? That's true. Noah stroked his chin. It seems that before marrying Mira and Lysana, I have to think about the housing problem. Do you need help? Elfman immediately asked. If you need money, I should be able to help. If I have to rely on my brother-in-law to pay for my new house, won't I be despised to death? Noah rejected without hesitation. So, there's no need. But, are you okay? Elfman reminded. Although it's a little unmanly to say this, Noah, you must have squandered all your wealth for the guild, right? Indeed, Noah had already squandered all of the money he had in this world. He had exchanged it for magic crystals to help Fairy Tale survive the most difficult period of her life. In addition, Noah's treasure vault was left in the world space, so it could be said that he was now penniless. It was because of this that Elfman offered to help, right? Now that you mention it, this is indeed a problem. Noah frowned. Also, holding a wedding is not a small expense. It seems that I have to think about the money. So, you still need my help, right? Elfman patted his chest. Although I don't have much savings, I should be able to help a lot. After all, I'm a man. Holding a wedding and buying a house? Where did you get so much money? Noah couldn't help but laugh. Moreover, I don't want to just hold an ordinary wedding, and I don't want Mira and Lisanna to live in a cheap house. If we really have to spend money, with your little savings, it's probably useless even if you have 10 times more. As a man, I really want to refute you, but I have to say that you're telling the truth. Elfman was speechless. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and shouted. Right. I almost forgot. If we get first place in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition, I think there's a prize of 30 million J. 30 million J? Noah was surprised. There's such a thing? What? Elfman asked curiously. Didn't the president tell you about this? No. Noah was speechless, and his heart skipped a beat. Grandfather wants us to participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition. It can't be because of the 30 million J, right? How is that possible? Elfman shook his head and denied it. The president is such a man, he definitely won't compromise for a little money. Elfman's words could not be said to be wrong. However, for some reason, Noah felt that Makarov had decided to participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition because of the 30 million J. As for getting the title of the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom, that was just a side benefit, right? After all, sometimes, Grandpa can also be very immoral and have no limits, Elfman looked curiously at Noah, who was muttering to himself. What are you talking about? Nothing. Noah laughed and spread his hands, returning to the topic at hand. However, even if there's a 30 million J prize, that money should be used to revive the guild. How can it be used by me alone? Today, Fairy Tale was no longer the same as before. It wasn't the #1 guild in the Kingdom of Fiori, and it didn't have many members. Even the commissions they had were few and far between. It was impossible for them to support the activities of a guild. Therefore, the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition's prize money was a timely reign for Fairy Tale. If they could reclaim the title of the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom and obtain the 30 million J prize money, then it wouldn't take long for Fairy Tale to return to its heyday, right? As the next guild leader, Noah would never use that sum of money to buy a new house and hold a wedding for himself. Well, a problem that can be solved with money is not a real problem. Noah patted Elfman's shoulder. As long as the guild returns to its previous state, do you have to worry about not having enough money to complete the most difficult commissions? That's true, with your ability, you can complete any commission no matter how difficult it is. If you want to earn money, this is enough. Elfman scratched his head. If that's the case, then I won't worry too much. However, if there's anything you need my help with, don't hesitate to ask. This is my sister's wedding and happiness, I should help when necessary. That's what a real man is. All right. Noah nodded quickly. If necessary, I won't hesitate. As they spoke, Mira and Lisanna came out of the tent at the same time. Sorry, Brother Noah, Brother Elfman. Lisanna yawned cutely. I woke up late. Sorry to keep you waiting. Mira smiled apologetically. I'll start cooking now. After dinner, we'll start today's training. Oh. Elfman replied loudly. That's what a real man is. Brother Elfman, don't shout so loudly. Lisanna said with some dissatisfaction. You're making my ears hurt. Seeing the Strauss siblings getting along well, Noah smiled knowingly. Just like that, the family's training began again. Chapter 1641. Just as Noah and his group began their 2-month training, in various parts of the Fiori Kingdom, the return of the main members of the Fairy Tale Guild, who was once the #1 guild in the kingdom, and the fact that they were preparing to participate in the annual Great Magic Battle Show was also known to everyone. Compared to the past, although the current Fairy Tale was not as famous as before, there were still many people paying attention to this guild. For example, the council, ever since the return of the main members of Fairy Tale, had been paying attention to the guild's movements. Not for other reasons, but because the members of the council thought that since the main members of the guild who were the most troublemakers had returned, they naturally had to keep an eye on them and not let this guild cause any more trouble. In addition to the council, many other famous guilds were also paying attention to Fairy Tale. For example, the Blue Pegasus. For example, the Lamia Scale. These two guilds clearly knew how incredible this magic guide guild named Fairy Tale was. In the case of the return of the main members, the others did not think much of this matter. Only Blue Pegasus and Lamia Scales, the guilds that had been in close contact with Fairy Tale, had been paying attention to their movements. Therefore, after knowing that Fairy Tale was preparing to participate in the Great Magic Battle Show, the members of these two guilds also began to look forward to it and prepared to put in the highest level of combat power. In addition to the guilds that had close contact with Fairy Tale, there was another guild that had been paying attention to the movements of Fairy Tale. No. There was something slightly wrong with this statement. To be precise, it should be said that the members of this guild had been paying attention to the movements of some people in Fairy Tale. Saber-Tooth. 7 years ago, it was just a small guild with no reputation. A few years ago, after changing the guild leader and bringing in 5 powerful magic shooters, it stood out from the many other guilds in the Fiori Kingdom and became the #1 guild in the kingdom. Now, in the headquarters of this guild, the 5 powerful magic shooters who changed the entire guild were all gathered in a room. It was a discussion room in the guild headquarters. In the discussion room, 4 people had already arrived. One of them had a head of short blonde hair and was sitting on the sofa. He was about 20 years old. The other was standing behind the sofa, like a shadow in the dark corner. He was about the same age as the former. The other was wearing a gentleman's hat and a masquerade on his face. He had long blonde hair and was leaning against the wall of the discussion room. The other was a burly man with muscles all over his body. He wore a tiger-skin skirt and had tattoos on both his left and right arms. He looked like the leader of a gang. 4 of the 5 powerful sorcerers who had transformed the Saber-Tooth stood there quietly, waiting for the arrival of the last person. They didn't have to wait too long before the last person slowly appeared. Sorry to keep you waiting. The person who entered the discussion room was a very slim girl with waist-length black hair. Her bangs were parted in the middle, and her hair was tied into a bun on both sides. Her eyelashes were long and slender. She was wearing a woman's off-the-shoulder dress similar to a cheongsam. Looking at the girl, the man sitting on the sofa with the posture of a playboy opened his eyes, looked over, and grinned. "You're finally here, Mississippi. It took a little bit of time, Christine." The girl replied with a dignified etiquette, but it gave people a feeling of arrogance. Then, her eyes swept over the shadow-like man, the blonde gentleman, and the muscular man. "Roger, Lucifer, and Olga, sorry to keep you waiting." "It doesn't matter." The shadow-like man called Roger said very coldly. "I just hope it's not something boring. It's only 22 minutes and 47 seconds. It's not that long." The blonde gentleman called Lucifer pressed on his hat and spoke with assurance like an elegant knight. "At least, that's what my memory says. What's the matter that requires the 4 of us to be gathered? Miss Maniba?" The burly man known as Olga crossed his arms and glanced at the young girl in the cheongsam-like dress. "There shouldn't be a mission that requires the 5 of us to move together, right? If there is such a mission, I want to try." The man called Christine said in an unruly manner. "I thought the annihilation mission I received last time would be difficult. Just in case, I even asked Roger to go with me. In the end, those Dark Guild scum were simply too weak. It was so boring. This time, it's not a boring matter." The girl called Miss Maniba by Oluya smiled sweetly. "I'm here to tell you that we've already chosen the 5th member to participate in the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition." "In other words, Miss is determined not to participate?" Christine spread out his hands. "Well, it's fine. Anyway, it's enough to have Roger and me. With Lucifer and Olga, with the 4 of us, the first place is within reach. Although that's the case, if the contestant isn't qualified, it will affect the reputation of our guild. A flirtatious smile appeared on Meniba's face. So, for the time being, Father and I have chosen a qualified contestant. As soon as she finished speaking, the door of the meeting room was opened. From outside the meeting room, a person slowly walked in with strong and forceful steps. It was a girl. She was a girl who was younger than anyone else present. She was only around 17 or 18 years old. The girl had short white hair and wore a tight white dress. She wore a pair of snow boots and a coat that looked like a winter coat. She looked very high-end and beautiful. And the girl did indeed have an admirable beauty. Although her slender and plump body was hidden under a wide and thick robe, one could still see a trace of good figure. However, such a high-end and beautiful girl's cute and delicate face was tense and expressionless. However, the young girl's eyes revealed a kind of persistence, a kind of willpower. Looking at the girl, the group of people in the meeting room were stunned. Xuanai? Christine said with some surprise. The person who plans to participate in the Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition with us is Xuanai? Roger also glanced at the high-end and beautiful girl, then looked away as if he had lost interest. He was extremely cold. As for Lucifer and Alyaga, they looked at each other. What a rare thing. Xuanai actually plans to participate in the Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition. Lucifer smiled elegantly. In my memory, Xuanai rarely takes the initiative to show herself, right? The girl named Xuanai was silent for a moment. In the next second, with an extremely determined expression, she said such a sentence. Because, in this Great Demon Combat Arts exhibition, there is a person that I hope to fight with. Is that so? Christine laughed out loud. So Xuanai, you also have an opponent that you want to fight? Isn't that the same as me and Roger? In order to participate in the competition, Xuanai defeated all the members except for the 5 of us in the internal competition of the guild. Meniba said leisurely. So, this time, let Xuanai participate in the competition with you. Everyone nodded indifferently. Seeing this, Xuanai lowered her head and her eyes flickered. I hope to see you again, Lord Noah. Chapter 1642. Today, the sun was shining brightly. On the top of a mountain not far from Magnolia, Noah stood quietly on the edge of the cliff with his eyes closed. His mind was slowly becoming peaceful. Clang! Suddenly, without any warning, Noah's body flashed with flame-like light and turned into a layer of light film, shrouding the outline of his body. Hum! The air trembled slightly. With the trembling sound, the blue flame-like light shrouding the outline of Noah's body began to shine brighter and brighter, causing the magic power to rise steadily and burn constantly, setting off waves of atmospheric fluctuations. Under such circumstances, the ground where Noah stood began to tremble slightly. Some of the gravel scattered there even vibrated, stirring up a series of pa-pa sounds. That was not the end. As if unaware of the changes in the surroundings, the magic power on Noah's body became more and more intense, causing the surrounding abnormal phenomena to become more intense and intense. It didn't take long for the demonic flames that rose from Noah's body to turn into a beam of light that soared into the sky. It set off violent waves and shock waves, causing the ground to tremble repeatedly. It was extremely terrifying. In the next second, the magic power beam that soared into the sky trembled and suddenly turned from blue to golden. At this moment, all the magic power rising from Noah's body turned into divine power. Moreover, the entire transformation process took less than a second. Then, at a certain moment, the golden divine power suddenly turned into phosphorescent energy. That was the energy of divine power. With his eyes closed, Noah was constantly transforming the nature of the energy in his body. Sometimes it was magic power. Sometimes it was divine power. Sometimes it was divine power. Sometimes, Noah would even transform the endless energy into pure mental strength, allowing his 5 senses to become extremely clear. In this way, Noah skillfully transformed the nature of various energies, allowing magic power, divine power, and mental strength to continuously transform each other and become more and more familiar with each other. And Noah's actions caused the energy beam that soared from his body to constantly change color, causing the waves and shock waves to become more and more intense. In the distance, Mira, Lysana, and Elfman, who had just finished their training, wiped their sweat while looking at the energy beam that soared into the sky. Their eyes could not help but be filled with deep amazement. Although I've been watching Noah train like this for 2 whole months, I'm still very surprised every time I see it. Myra's delicate and beautiful face was full of solemnity. Generally speaking, even archmages like Kildas and Laxas would use up all their magic power in just a few minutes and take a few days to recover, but Noah is not in this situation at all. That's right. Lysana stared in Noah's direction with shock and amazement in her eyes. In the past 2 months, Brother Noah has been squandering his magic power like this almost every day, but I've never seen him use up all his magic power, nor did I see him need time to recover. It's as if he has endless magic power. But that's impossible, isn't it? Elfman said seriously. There's no such thing as unlimited magic power in this world. Even Noah can't do that. He's not a man. Although there were parts of Elfman's words that needed to be ridiculed, it had to be said that no matter who it was, they would all come to the same conclusion. If the so-called unlimited magic power really existed, it would have caused a sensation in the world of magic. After all, when Edras, who was connected to Aslan, lost his magic power, it was as if the world had come to an end. In order to obtain magic power, Edras did not hesitate to use space magic to turn Aslan's archmages into magic crystals. Unlimited magic power? That was something that only existed in dreams. If such a thing really existed, the world of magic would have been shaken. Magic had existed a long time ago, but there had never been such a thing as unlimited magic power, and now it was even more impossible for there to be such a thing. That was what Mira, Lysana, and Elfman were thinking. Even Mira and Lysana, who thought highly of Noah, did not think that Noah could use unlimited magic power. It was precisely because this matter was so unbelievable that Makarov tried his best to hide the existence of lumen starlight and treated it seriously. If such a thing were to be known by the world, it would definitely cause a huge commotion and impact. But sister, Noah is indeed releasing a large amount of magic power now, right? Elfman suddenly asked doubtfully. I've been thinking about it before. Sometimes, Noah doesn't seem to be releasing magic power, but something else, right? After hearing Elfman's words, Mira and Lysana looked at each other. Clearly, the 2 sisters also had the same doubts. Sometimes, Noah didn't use magic power. How could this matter be hidden from the Strauss siblings? After all, Noah had been cultivating like this for the past 2 months without hiding at all. Mira and the others naturally noticed. But if it's not magic power, what else could it be? Lysana asked. Could it be that there is some other mysterious power that we don't know about apart from magic power? Maybe. Mira shook her head and looked at Noah, who was surrounded by a huge pillar of energy that shot into the sky, with a gentle smile. No matter what kind of power it is, as long as it is beneficial to Noah, isn't that enough? Lysana and Elfman nodded in agreement. In fact, as long as Mira, Lysana, and Elfman asked Noah about it, Noah definitely wouldn't mind telling them his secret. However, the Strauss siblings didn't have any intention of getting to the bottom of it. They had always thought that no matter what, as long as it was beneficial to Noah, everything else wasn't important. That was why the Strauss siblings didn't ask anything. And since they didn't ask, Noah had no reason to explain himself. This was a situation that could only be created by the most extreme trust. Without a doubt, Noah trusted Mira, Lysana, and Elfman from the bottom of his heart. The 3 siblings also trusted Noah from the bottom of their hearts. Otherwise, Noah wouldn't have trained his control of energy so brazenly in front of the family. After an unknown amount of time had passed, the phenomenon of the earthquake began to slowly subside. The waves and shockwaves that swept through the surroundings like a storm also began to disappear. The pillar of energy that shot into the sky descended bit by bit. After a while, it shrunk back into Noah's body, allowing Noah's robes to calm down. Only then did Noah open his eyes, a trace of satisfaction appearing in them. In 2 months, my control of energy has finally increased by a few levels. Now, Noah no longer had a problem with energy consumption. Thus, the amount of energy he could control directly affected the power Noah could unleash when he used it. With my current control of energy, no matter what kind of mystic I use, it should be enough to unleash its greatest power, right? Noah had already felt this a month ago. That was because a month ago, Noah was already able to unleash the greatest power of the magic and spells he had learned. I thought that as long as I continue to increase my control of energy, the power of magic and spells will continue to increase. It's a pity that there's a limit to the magic and spells I've learned, Noah calculated silently. For example, no matter how much mana I inject into the magic, it won't be able to increase the degree of enhancement. However, Noah should be content with what he had. No matter what, if I use enhancement to strengthen my body now, I'll almost have the physical strength of a god. In other words, Noah could reach 5 digits just by relying on strengthening magic alone. And it would be at the top. Today is the end of my cultivation. Noah raised his head and looked in Magnolia's direction. Time to go back. Chapter 1643. Fiori Kingdom, Magnolia. On the street outside the Fairy Tale Guild, a few people were staggering towards the entrance of the guild. When they reached the entrance of the guild, they all fell to the ground. I'm back. Naz was lying on the ground, looking listless. Finally back, not only Naz, but also Gray, Lucy, Wendy, Hubby, Xia Lulu, and even Lebby, who were walking with him, looked extremely tired. They were either sitting or lying on the ground, looking like they had been forced to do hard labor for a few days. They were so exhausted that even moving was difficult. Among the people present, there was only one person who could still maintain a good condition. This is too much, you guys. Elusha put her hands on her hips and lectured them seriously. There's a very important competition waiting for us. If the president sees your disappointing performances, he might exclude you from the team. At that time, you'll be the ones to regret it. The annual festival that determined the ranking of all the guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, the Great Magic Battle Exhibition. As the name suggested, it was a competition that only the Magic Guide Guild that belonged to the Fiori Kingdom could participate. The participants were not only the elites of the major guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, but there were also some special people who had strange magic. It could be said that it was a fierce competition. Just by imagining it, one could imagine how fierce the competition would be. Of course, although it was a competition between the major guilds in the Fiori Kingdom, it was impossible for all the members of the guild to participate. Although the rules were different every year, and even the content of the competition was different, there was one thing that every great magic battle exhibition had in common. That was, every participant had to be a team of 5 members from the same guild. In other words, if Fairy Tale wanted to participate in the Great Magic Battle Exhibition, they had to choose at least 5 members to form a group. Otherwise, they would not even be qualified to sign up. After this period of training, Naz and the others had undoubtedly improved their strength. However, this was definitely the same for everyone else. If Nazi and the others continued to maintain this listless and exhausted appearance, it was not impossible for them to be excluded from the participation quota. That definitely won't do. Naz immediately braced himself and struggled to get up from the ground. I will definitely participate in the Great Demon Battle Exhibition exercise. Me too. Gray struggled to get up as well. If I can't even participate in the competition, then there's no point in becoming like this. That being said, but looking at Naz and Gray's swaying appearance, it was probably really hard for them, right? However, it's already very good to be able to stand up. Lucy moaned weakly. It's hard for me to even move now. As expected of Brother Naz and Brother Gray. Wendy smiled weakly as well. The two of you will definitely be able to become members of the competition. That's hard to say. Although Kildas has already gone on a trip and is not in the guild, Laxas and Mira are still in the guild. Gadjaloo and Julian are also strong candidates for the competition. It's not certain if Naz and Gray will be chosen. Rebby was still lying on the ground and glanced at Alusha. Well, Alussa, on the other hand, will definitely be chosen. Love. Habby raised his hand weakly. After all, it's Alusha. I say, don't forget about Lily. Xia Lulu forced herself to be alert and flew in the air, snorting softly. Lily is also very strong, but he can't use it freely in Aslan. Perhaps he will also be chosen as the representative of the surpassers in the guild. Indeed. Alusha smiled slightly. There are also many powerful magic shooters in our guild. Let's clearly tell everyone in the Fiori Kingdom during the Great Magic Battle exhibition. Oh. Everyone immediately raised their hands and responded loudly. The next moment, a somewhat playful laughter entered the ears of the group. It's good to have this ambition, but before that, you have to return to the guild first. If you lie on the streets, you won't be convincing at all. The sudden voice made Alusha and the rest slightly startled. Then, they turned their heads and looked in the direction of the guild's entrance. They saw that in front of the guild's entrance, a group of fairy tale members had all appeared out of nowhere and were smiling at Alusha and the rest. The one in the lead was Noah. I knew it. If it's so noisy, it must be you guys who are back. Noah shook his head amusedly. I haven't seen you guys for a few months. Seeing you guys so energetic, I'm relieved. Hearing this, the crowd finally reacted. Noah? Alusha was shocked and surprised. You're back. I came back after you guys left the guild and went out to train. Noah's gaze met Alusha's and shrugged. Speaking of which, you guys didn't really think that I was killed by Aconarolia, right? Of course not. Gray stepped forward and punched Noah's chest fiercely. You brat, you've always been good at doing things that surprise us since you were young. How could a mere dragon kill you? What do you mean a mere dragon? Naz immediately retorted. If it was Iginiru, even Noah would be defeated. Idiot. Lucy sighed. No one is comparing with you. What an idiot. Xia Lulu said arrogantly. You're not the only one who was raised by a dragon. Love. Habby spread his hands. But, this is Naz. While everyone was surprised by Noah's return, Wendy also came to Noah with a happy face. Brother Noah, welcome back. Looking at the happy Wendy, Noah couldn't help but reach out and touch Wendy's head. Welcome back too. Wendy suddenly showed a shy and bashful smile, but she didn't reject Noah's intimate action. There was even a hint of comfort in her expression, which made Xia Lulu a little jealous. You only know how to please that male. But, it's great that you're back. Alusha smiled at Noah. With you, our guild's chances of winning are much higher. After all, you're not the only ones who have cultivation. Noah returned a smile to Alusha. Although I'm a month late, I still cultivated a little and finally achieved some results. Oh. Is that so? Naz was eager to try and clenched his fist at Noah. In that case, we might as well take advantage of the situation to determine the winner. You really don't learn to be obedient. Gray curled his lips. How can I win against Noah, you idiot? Huh? Naz glared at Gray. Did you just say you played with eggs? Exhibitionist. I'm talking about idiots and masochists. Gray glared back, unwilling to be outdone. Even your ears don't work well. Just don't participate in the Great Demonic Battle exhibition and go home to play with eggs. You really said you played with eggs, you bastard. Naz, who are you calling a bastard? You idiot. Gray, shut up. Stop arguing. Alusha, love. Gray and Naz, there they are. Lucy complained habitually. Hubby 2 and Hubby 3, really? Xia Lulu turned her head away. They're all idiots. Seeing this noisy scene, Noah laughed. The members of Fairy Tale also laughed. "All right, let's all go in," Mira said gently. "The president is ready to announce the list of contestants." "You've all come back at the right time." Everyone nodded their heads and walked into the guild while chatting and laughing. In Fairy Tale, Makarov was standing on the stage where he usually performed and made important announcements. He looked down at the audience. "Very good, everyone is here. Now, let's announce the list of contestants." Everyone held their breaths. Chapter 1644. First of all, there are two pieces of news that I have to tell everyone. While everyone was holding their breaths, Makarov seemed to be deliberately whetting their appetites. He changed the topic and said this. "The first piece of news is related to the Great Demonic Martial Arts Competition, and the second piece of news is related to the future of our guild." Although Makarov looked like he was whetting everyone's appetite, his expression was quite serious. That was natural. No matter which piece of news it was not something that everyone could ignore. "Let me tell everyone the first piece of news." Makarov coughed and said. "In order to participate in this year's Great Demonic Martial Arts Competition and obtain victory so that our guild can become the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom again, I have carefully studied the official rules of this year's competition and found that there is no limit to the number of teams that can participate. Therefore, I have decided that this time, we will select 2 teams. 2 teams? Everyone was surprised. 2 teams? Noah was slightly startled, but he was not too surprised. "Is this okay, Guildmaster?" Elusha raised her hand and asked. In the previous year's Great Demonic Martial Arts Competition, there was no guild that allowed 2 teams to participate at the same time. But it is true that there is no limit this year, Makarov said shamelessly. "So, no matter what, we did not break the rules. Isn't that fine?" Everyone was suddenly speechless. However, since there was no limit to the rules, it was not impossible to do so. Since that is the case, why not select a few more teams to participate? Makarov smiled slyly. "If that is the case, won't our chances of winning be higher?" "Forget it." Wakaba poured a bucket of cold water on them. "In the previous years, our guild was at the bottom. This time, although our main members are participating, if we can't get a place after sending so many teams, it would be too embarrassing." Hey, Gray said in annoyance. "You guys are too unconfident in yourselves." "Well, this can't be helped, right?" Lucy sighed. After all, anyone would feel that using 3 months to catch up with a 7-year gap is too much of a stretch. "But don't we still have Laxas, Elusha, and Mira? I don't think that many people will be able to catch up to those 3 in 7 years, Gray said matter-of-factly as he folded his arms in front of him. "Not to mention, now that Noah is back, with Noah's strength, not to mention the other magic shooters, even the Lamia scale, Dulla might not be able to catch up to Noah in 7 years, right?" "That's right." Wendy nodded repeatedly, trying her best to agree. "If it's big brother Noah, he will definitely not lose to anyone." "I think so too," Lisanna agreed without hesitation. "If it's big brother Noah, then even if someone has 7 years to chase after him, I don't know if anyone can catch up to him." "Allah, I think so too." Mira smiled sweetly. "No matter what, Noah won't lose." Although the other members who had personally witnessed Noah's strength in the battle against Achenorlia didn't express any opinions, it was clear that they had the same thoughts. Only Makeo, Wakaba, and the other members who had been in the guild for the past 7 years expressed their opinions. They had never seen Noah display such strength before. "Naive. You're really too naive." Makeo shook his head. "You don't know, but Dulla is no longer the weakest of the 10 great magisters from 7 years ago." "That's right," Wakaba agreed. "In these 7 years, Dulla has become the 5th great magisters of the 10 great magisters. His ranking is even higher than the chairman's." "5th place?" Lucy was surprised. "Doesn't that mean that in this continent, only the top 4 great magisters of the 10 great magisters are stronger than Sir Dulla?" The 10 great magisters are only the 10 most outstanding magisters on the continent. There are definitely magisters who have the strength to become one of the 10 great magisters, but they can't because of their style, Alusha said solemnly. However, since he's ranked 5th, it means that Dulla might be stronger than the chairman. Everyone immediately fell silent. Didn't that mean that this time, Fairy Tale would be facing an existence even stronger than Makarov, who was one of the 10 great Saint Magi? That kind of thing doesn't matter at all. Naz suddenly stood on a table and grinned. No matter who the opponent is, if they want to stop us from becoming the number 1 magisters in the Fiori Kingdom, we'll just send them flying. That one sentence swept away the heaviness in everyone's hearts. Alright, there's no point in discussing who's stronger and who's weaker. Noah smiled and concluded. We'll only know the result after we fight. Everyone nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Makarov smiled in relief, but then he quickly stopped smiling and said, "Don't worry about it. As for the second news, I've decided that after the Great Magisters tournament ends, I'll give up my position as the chairman. Noah will become the 5th chairman of Fairy Tale." This time, the entire guild was in an uproar. Congratulations, Noah. Gray patted Noah's shoulder. You're finally going to be the chairman. Congratulations. Congratulations. Remember to treat us when the time comes. The group of friends all gathered around Noah and gave him their blessings one by one. After all, as early as 7 years ago, Noah's position as the chairman had already been decided. They were just waiting for Makarov to step down. Therefore, Makarov's announcement went with the flow and did not cause a huge commotion among the crowd. Looking at his friends around him, Noah suddenly smiled. Then, I'll also announce something to everyone. After saying that, Noah extended his hand and pulled Mira and Lisanna out of the crowd, hugging them in his arms. After the Great Magisters tournament ends, Mira, Lisanna and I will officially get married. After saying this, the entire guild suddenly went silent. Get married? In the next second, cries of surprise resounded throughout the entire space, causing the buildings in the guild to tremble. Is this for real? No. No way. Doesn't that mean that Noah, Mira and Lisanna are really going to get married? Damn it, I'm so envious. The group of friends immediately went into an uproar. And amidst the commotion, Mira and Lisanna's pretty face blushed slightly, but their faces were filled with bliss. Nestling in Noah's arms, they silently confirmed this matter. Wah wah, wah 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 wah. Wendy was flustered and did not know what to do. Something big suddenly happened. He. Xia Lulu, on the other hand, was extremely happy. That male finally decided to get married. That's great. This time, Wendy can completely give up on him. This is too shocking. Lucy patted her full chest. But, thinking about it carefully, the 3 of them were already engaged 7 years ago. It's natural for them to get married now, right? Get married. Get married. Elusha's face was stiff, and no one knew what she was thinking. Her face turned red and even emitted smoke, as if she had crashed. I'm not mentally prepared yet, that's not right? Gray ridiculed. You're not the one getting married, Elusha, why are you mentally prepared? Get married? A question mark appeared above Naz's head, and then he said this sentence without thinking. That kind of thing doesn't matter, hurry up and tell us the name list for the competition. Silence. A deathly silence ensued. Everyone stopped talking for no reason, and then, all of them cast a dangerous look at Naz. Naz couldn't help but take a step back, his whole body trembled, and his face was filled with horror. You. What are you doing? Stinky Flame, you said something that you shouldn't have said. Gray's smile was unprecedentedly bright, and then his expression changed. Beat him up for me. Everyone present rushed towards Naz without any hesitation. Thus, Naz's screams rang out along with the crackling sounds of explosive strikes. Chapter 1645. Pung. Naz, whose face was bruised and swollen, fell heavily to the ground. There were still several large bumps on his head. His eyes rolled around as he groaned half dead. Why? This thick-skinned guy didn't know why he provoked public anger. In the end, it was Lysana who angrily threw down a sentence. Naz, you definitely won't be able to find a bride in the future. At this moment, no one objected to Lysana's words. Everyone nodded and expressed their agreement. Even Habi, who was flying in the air, spread out his hands and said helplessly, "This is Naz." To be able to use such a sentence to explain all the problems, one could imagine how despairing Naz's thick brain had become. Therefore, even Makarov, who was about to announce the official matters, turned a blind eye to the scene of everyone scolding Naz. When it was over, he cracked open his mouth and laughed. This way, if we win the Great Demon Battle Exhibition and become the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom, then it will be 3 consecutive good things. The first good thing was that Noah became the leader of Fairy Tale. The second good thing was that Noah, Mira, and Lysana officially got married. The third good thing was that Fairy Tale became the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom. If this wasn't the 3 blessings, then what was? What a pity. Makarov shook his head regretfully. If I could have a great-grandson, then it would be even more perfect. His words caused Mira and Lysana's faces to turn red. Everyone else also looked at Noah with ridicule in their eyes. Noah's face was full of awkwardness as he quickly changed the topic. So, grandfather, have the members of the 2 teams been decided? That's right. Makarov nodded and began to announce. Then, let's first announce the members of Fairy Tale A team. Makarov extended a hand and pointed to the side. Suddenly, a projection screen flashed next to Makarov. On the screen, the names of 5 people were displayed. Nazda Lagner, Gray Forrestal, Elusha Shukalito, Lucy Hatfilia, Wendy Mabel. The 5 above are the members of Fairy Tale A team. Makarov said. In addition, each team can have a substitute member. That's not urgent, we'll decide who's going to play next. Hearing Makarov's words and looking at the names displayed on the screen, everyone began to talk. That's great. Naz immediately jumped up and revived with full health. Humph, Gray's eyes, his eyes were also filled with excitement. In the end, Fairy Tale A team is our usual team. Elusa smiled leisurely. Only Lucy and Wendy started to panic. It can't be. Let me play. I can't do it. No wonder Lucy and Wendy were so flustered. Originally, 7 years ago, the 2 girls weren't any powerful magic shooters in the guild. Now, 7 years have passed. Even if they have been practicing for a while, with Lucy and Wendy's strength, they still don't know if they can keep up with the pace of this era. In that case, instead of letting Lucy and Wendy participate, it would be better to let the members of the guild who have also been here for 7 years participate. This was Lucy and Wendy's idea. Even Noah frowned slightly and spoke with some hesitation. Grandpa, isn't it better to think about it again? It's not that Noah doesn't trust Lucy and Wendy. Not to mention Lucy for the time being, Wendy is still just a child. Even the Dragon Slayer magic shooters in the sky can only use some auxiliary magic. There are not many who can use magic that can be used for combat. Now, although Noah could feel that Wendy's magic power seemed to have improved a lot, and she was almost catching up with Naz and Gray during the S-rank magic shooter promotion exam, magic power was one thing, and combat power was another. In the past, Wendy has not experienced many serious battles at all. Letting her play like this, Noah is still somewhat worried. However, not knowing if she saw the worry in Noah's heart, Wendy calmed down and a firm expression appeared on her young and cute face. I understand, I will try my best. Wendy. Noah was surprised. I'm sorry, brother Noah, I know you will be worried. Wendy clenched her small fists and looked like she was cheering for herself. But I also want to use my actions to tell brother Noah that I have become stronger. Is that so? Noah muttered to himself. After a while, he touched Wendy's head. Okay, but remember not to force yourself too much. Yes. Wendy nodded her head heavily. Okay. Lucy cheered up at once. Since Wendy has made up her mind, then I have to show my enthusiasm. I will work hard too. Yes, that's right. Elisha immediately agreed. As long as we work together, there will be no problem. Then, let's announce the list of members of Fairy Tale B. Makarov stretched his hand to the other side. These are the 5 members of the B team. After that, another projection screen flashed on the other side of Makarov. On the screen, there were 5 names. Noah Dole. Laxus Dole. Milaj Strauss. Gadger Wright Fox. Julian Rocks. The 5 above are the members of Fairy Tale B. Makarov looked around at everyone below. As for the reserve members of the B team, we will also decide later. Hearing this, everyone turned their gazes and looked at the 5 members of Fairy Tale B. B team? Laxus, who was sitting at the bar, narrowed his eyes slightly. Are they in the same team as Noah? Mira tilted her head and looked satisfied. Are they in the same team as that guy? Gadru, who was hiding in the corner, looked in Noah's direction. Julian is in the same team? Julian was more or less surprised. Noah stared at the name list on the screen and nodded silently in his heart. Not to mention himself, whether it was Laxus, Mira, Gadru, or Julian, they were all first-class powerhouses in Fairy Tale. Coupled with the members of Fairy Tale, the entire Fairy Tale strongest group of magic shooters were all listed. With such a lineup, there was no reason why they couldn't stand out in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Exhibition. The group of companions was also discussing. Whether it's the A team or B team, they're all quite strong. With such a lineup, they're probably the strongest in our guild, right? However, isn't it better to let 2 of the Baratheons replace Lucy and Wendy's positions? There's also Elfman and Kana. If they join the team, they should have a better chance of winning, right? From the perspective of teamwork, it's better to have Lucy and Wendy in the A team. After all, they're originally a team. Obviously, everyone had their own opinions. But in the end, everyone believed in Makarov's choice. Then, the announcement of the members ends here. I'll consider the alternate members of the 2 teams again. Makarov's voice attracted everyone's attention. Tomorrow, we have to go to the venue of the Great Demonic Combat Arts Exhibition, so today, the members of each team must remember to be prepared. Target. 30 million, cough cough cough. Before Makarov could finish his sentence, he coughed dryly and spoke in a serious tone. Target. Fiore is first. Someone cheered loudly in the venue. Chapter 1646. Tomorrow, they would go to the venue of the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition. After making such a decision, Makarov dismissed everyone and began to prepare. Because, in addition to Team A and Team B, the rest of the members would also go to the venue to cheer for everyone. Therefore, this event could be said to be an event of the entire guild. Of course, originally, there should be more or less a few people left to look after the guild, but except for the main members who came back from Celestial Wolf Island, the rest of the members objected loudly. That was natural. Last time, after a group of main members left, they did not return to the guild and disappeared for a whole 7 years. This time, no matter what, the members who had guarded the guild for 7 years were not willing to stay in the guild and watched everyone leave. Once bitten, twice shy. Obviously, there was still some uneasiness in the hearts of those companions, and they were somewhat sensitive to the departure of the main members. In view of this, Makarov simply announced that from tomorrow until the end of the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition, the guild would suspend business and would not accept any commissions. As for the members of the guild, they would all go to the venue of the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition to cheer for the contestants. Anyway, even if they continued to operate, with the current situation of the guild, there would not be many commissions. Since that was the case, they might as well stop business and wait until they won the Great Demon Battle Arts Exhibition and gained both fame and fortune. At that time, it would not be too late to open for business. In this way, the group of members left the guild in the evening. Night gradually fell. On a dim path, Wendy was walking here alone. This was a very rare thing. Because, if it was a normal day, Xia Lulu would definitely be by Wendy's side. Just like Naz and Hubby were inseparable partners, Wendy and Xia Lulu were also inseparable best friends. However, today, Wendy sneaked out alone after Xia Lulu fell asleep. Following the dim path, Wendy came to the riverbank. Phew, standing on the edge of the riverbank, Wendy took a deep breath of the cold air and smiled. Sure enough, the night air is delicious. As a dragon slayer sorcerer, Wendy could recover her mana and stamina by eating substances of the same attribute. For Wendy, who had learned the dragon slayer magic of the sky, air was the best nutrition package. What Wendy liked most was the morning and night air. The morning air was very fresh. For Wendy, that kind of air was equivalent to fresh milk. The night air was a little cool. To Wendy, that kind of air was like a frozen cold drink. No matter which one it was the smell that Wendy liked. However, Wendy rarely ran out in the middle of the night like this to taste the night air. The main reason was that Wendy was timid to begin with, and Xia Lulu was overprotective of her. Running around alone in the middle of the night was something that she rarely did in the past. But today was special. As she breathed in the cold air, Wendy pressed her chest and muttered softly. I'm still a little uneasy. That was why Wendy ran out alone. Tomorrow, Fairy Tail would go to the venue of the Great Magic Battle Exhibition and compete with various famous guilds from all over the kingdom for the title of number 1. As a member of one of the 2 teams sent out by Fairy Tail, Wendy's heart was still somewhat uneasy. Me, can I do it? It was no wonder that Wendy was so unconfident. Just as Noah thought, not long ago, Wendy was just a novice sorcerer who could use some support magic. It was difficult for her to use many combat magic. Compared to the other members of the guild, she could be said to be the weakest. Although her mana has increased a lot now, compared to me, Brother Elfman, Sister Kana, and the people from Thor Castle, she is definitely more suitable to go on stage. Whether it was Fried, Bikesro, Ebarglin, or Elfman and Kana from Thor Castle, they were all former first-line members of Fairy Tail. In Fairy Tail, the only people who could definitely surpass these people were those S-rank sorcerers. Apart from the S-rank sorcerers, even the former Naz and Gray found it difficult to say that they could definitely defeat these people. Therefore, compared to Wendy, these people were undoubtedly more suitable to go on stage. Of course, it was said that only those S-rank sorcerers could definitely surpass these people, but Noah was an exception. After all, even if Brother Noah is not an S-rank sorcerer, he is still very powerful. The more Wendy thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Is it really okay for me to go on stage with such a Brother Noah in the competition? As soon as her voice fell, a somewhat helpless voice sounded behind Wendy. I was wondering what you were doing here alone. So you were thinking about such things? When the familiar voice sounded, Wendy was suddenly startled. However, before she could turn her head, a warm big hand was placed on Wendy's small head and gently stroked it. Really, undoubtedly, you were so confident during the day, but now you're hiding here alone and saying such things. It's really worrying. The familiar voice, the familiar smell, and the familiar way of stroking made Wendy's uneasy heart start to calm down little by little. Brother Noah. Wendy didn't need to turn her head to know who it was. Why are you here? Well, this question. Noah was also standing by the riverbank, stroking Wendy's head while looking around and saying such a sentence. Do you want to hear the truth? Or do you want to hear lies? Truth? Lies? Wendy was startled and looked suspiciously at Noah. Brother Noah also knows how to lie? No, it should be said that if I say that I don't know how to lie, then I'll be suspected, right? Noah laughed and said. Everyone knows how to lie. It's something that can be understood without learning. Almost all humans know how to lie, and I am no exception. It's just that there's no need to, but if there's a need, I'll also lie. But, I know. Wendy tilted her head and revealed a cute smile. Brother Noah has never lied to me. Oh, you. Noah patted Wendy's head lovingly and said. Actually, I was a little worried about your situation, so I wanted to check on you. In the end, I found out that you weren't in the dormitory, but ran out. After joining Fairy Tale, Wendy moved into the female dormitory. Therefore, Noah only needed to ask a few of the guild's girls to check on the situation of Wendy's room, and he would immediately know that Wendy was not in the dormitory. After that, Noah began to look for Wendy's whereabouts and found her here. Now, it seems that my worries were not unfounded, Noah said as he looked at Wendy. Hey, Wendy, tell me honestly, are you forcing yourself? Noah was most worried that Wendy was forcing herself. This girl's nature was extremely kind and pure. As long as it was for the guild, even if it was beyond her ability, this petite girl would still stand up and help the guild, right? Noah was worried that Wendy would not disappoint everyone's expectations and hopes. In order to let the guild become the #1 guild in the Fiori Kingdom again, she would disregard her own wishes and force herself to stand up. If you're really forcing yourself, then Wendy, I won't allow you to participate in the competition. Noah said very seriously. I hope that you can be honest with me. Brother Noah, I'm really not forcing myself. Wendy said hurriedly. Then, she hesitated for a moment and said uneasily. I'm just worried that I don't have the ability to fulfill everyone's wishes and not disappoint everyone's expectations. Is that so? Noah's expression softened and he could not help but laugh. Indeed, it's very similar to your worries. Don't make fun of me, Brother Noah, Wendy protested in a small voice, her face pained. I'm really worried that I won't be able to do it. Noah muttered to himself. Chapter 1647. Noah finally understood the uneasiness in Wendy's heart. To put it simply, Wendy was not confident in her own strength. The Great Magic Battle Exhibition was a battle between the major guilds in the entire Fiori Kingdom. All kinds of magic shooters would appear. Among them, there were definitely some who were stronger than Alusha, Mira, and even Laxus. For example, Dulla of the Lamia scale had risen to 5th place in the 10 Great Saint Magi in 7 years. Her ranking was even higher than Makarov's. In the face of such an opponent, apart from Noah, even Naz, that thick-skinned guy, wouldn't dare to say that he could win, right? Since that was the case, Wendy, who could only use some support magic not long ago, was even more so. Moreover, in the guild, there were people who were stronger than Wendy. It was no wonder that this little girl felt uneasy about participating in the competition. At that moment, Noah turned around and knelt in front of Wendy. He continued to stroke Wendy's head and said, Then, let me evaluate Wendy's current strength. Wendy's body immediately tensed up. She looked at Noah and nodded with an uneasy expression on her face. Noah acted as if he did not see the uneasiness on Wendy's young and cute face and began to evaluate her. In terms of magic power alone, you've improved a lot compared to before. It's enough to catch up with Naz and Gray when they participated in the S-rank magic shooter promotion exam. With such magic power, I believe that you can use many of the Sky Element Dragon Slayer magic that you've learned, right? Wendy nodded heavily and confirmed Noah's guess. In fact, with Wendy's current magic, she could even use the Dragon Slayer magic. From this, it could be seen how much Wendy's magic had grown. Of course, if it's just high magic power, it doesn't mean anything. However, the Dragon Slayer magic that you've learned is a lost magic that originated from ancient times. It's extremely powerful. In addition, it also has healing and enhancement effects. It's obvious that it can't be weak, Noah said confidently. Then, the only thing that you're not qualified for now is that you haven't experienced enough actual combat. Combining all the factors, in my opinion, your strength is probably weaker than Naz and Gray when they were in the S-rank magic shooter promotion exam. Noah looked directly at Wendy. With such strength, in the previous guild, it was enough to stand on the first line. But, that was the previous guild, wasn't it? Wendy couldn't help but say. Now, 7 years have passed, everyone in the guild has improved a lot. They are much stronger than me now. But, Wendy, it's wrong to only judge the role of strength, Noah retorted. Let's not talk about the individual battle for the time being. But in the team battle, with a supportive member like you who has healing and support magic, how much effect can be exerted, you know best, don't you? What if it's not a team battle, but an individual battle? Wendy seemed to be a little stubborn. If it's an individual battle, then won't I be holding everyone back? Why do you have the idea that you will hold everyone back in an individual battle? Noah laughed. Indeed, in today's guild, there are many magic shooters who are stronger than you, but in other guilds, it may not be so. You have always compared yourself to your companions in the guild, and compared yourself to those powerful people in famous guilds, but in other guilds, there are members who are weaker than you. Noah looked at Wendy with a gentle gaze. You have to believe in your magic, Wendy. Believe in my magic? Wendy was stunned. Looking at Wendy like this, Noah reached out and held one of Wendy's small hands. No matter what kind of magic it is, you have to believe in it. Noah looked into Wendy's eyes and said this. After all, that's the magic that Grandine taught you, the magic that your mother taught you. Believe in it. That's what you should do. Noah's words were like a ray of sunlight shining into Wendy's heart, dispelling all the uneasiness and darkness in Wendy's heart. Seeing Wendy's expression suddenly become cheerful, Noah couldn't help but smile. It seems that you have finally seen the light. Thank you, Big Brother Noah. Wendy reached out her other hand and held Noah's hand that was tightly holding hers, her eyes curved into a crescent moon shape. Big Brother Noah is really an amazing person. You just said some self-righteous words to yourself. Noah rubbed Wendy's small head. There's nothing amazing about it. Wendy didn't say anything else and just enjoyed Noah's head rubbing. After a while, she suddenly stuttered. That, Big Brother Noah, do you really intend to marry Sister Mira and Sister Lisanna? That's right, Noah said strangely. What's wrong? No. Nothing. Wendy was still stammering. Then, she suddenly became depressed. But, if that's the case, what should I do? Noah looked like a monk scratching his head in confusion. What do you mean by what should you do? Wendy was speechless. But, after a while, Wendy took a deep breath and looked at Noah seriously. Big Brother Noah, do you remember when I asked you if you would have a third fiancé? Noah was speechless. Of course, Noah remembered this. It happened when he was reunited with Wendy. At that time, Wendy asked Noah if there was a possibility of a third fiancé since he had 2 fiancées. He still remembered that Noah's answer at that time was no. Could it be that because of this, Wendy felt that he didn't deserve Mira and Lisanna? Just as Noah couldn't help but think of this, Wendy's young and cute face turned red for no reason. In the next second, Wendy shouted as if she had thrown caution to the wind. Big Brother Noah. Noah, who was letting his imagination run wild, was startled by the sudden shout. He couldn't help but take a few steps back and raise his voice nervously. What? What's wrong? Wendy's face was red and her eyes were tightly shut. She shouted as if she didn't shock him to death. I also want to be Big Brother Noah's fiancé. Wendy's shout directly turned into an echo that reverberated over the entire riverbank. It also reverberated in Noah's ears, causing Noah to be stunned. The whole place fell into a dead silence. Huh? After an unknown amount of time, Noah let out a cry that sounded like he had gone off the line. So that's why. Wendy's head began to smoke. She resisted the dizziness and shouted in despair. I also want to be Big Brother Noah's fiancé and marry Big Brother Noah. Noah's brain short-circuited. What? What's going on? How did this happen all of a sudden? Could it be that there was a mistake somewhere? At this moment, Noah suddenly had a feeling that the world was playing a joke on him. Looking at Noah's stiff expression, the red on Wendy's face began to fade and tears began to accumulate in her eyes. Can't I? Looking at Wendy, who was about to cry, Noah's heart was filled with an extremely strong sense of guilt. Driven by the sense of guilt, Noah almost subconsciously opened his mouth. But you're still young, at least wait until you grow up. After saying that, Noah came to his senses. He even had the urge to die. On the contrary, Wendy's pair of eyes bloomed with unprecedented vigor and her beautiful face became red again. Then it's settled. Wendy said extremely shyly. When I grow up, Big Brother Noah must marry me as his fiancé. You can't lie to me. Leaving this sentence, Wendy finally couldn't help but be shy. She turned her head and directly ran out of sight. Noah could only stare blankly at the direction Wendy ran in and didn't react for a long time. Chapter 1648. In the end, after parting with Wendy, Noah returned to the guild without any memory of it and returned to his room. Lying on the bed, Noah recalled Wendy's blushing face and could not help but laugh bitterly. Just kidding. Looks like it's not like that, or rather, in Noah's memory, Wendy was not a child who would make such a joke. It's just pure longing. It's not like that either. When a child told an adult that he must marry her as his bride when he grew up, anyone would think that it was just a child's talk. Unfortunately, Wendy was no longer a child of that age. Compared to Noah, Wendy was younger, but not by much. After all, Noah was only about to turn 20, while Wendy was about to turn 15. A 5-year gap was not big, but it was not small either. A girl who was about to turn 15 would not be so innocent as to casually say that she wanted to be someone's bride. From Wendy's shy expression, it could be seen that this girl knew what she meant. In other words, I was confessed to by a child who is almost 5 years younger than me. At this point, Noah's expression was extremely strange, and there was even a hint that he could not bear to look at it. The worst thing is that I said those words. At that time, Noah still remembered that this was how he responded to Wendy's confession. At least wait until you grow up. Thinking of this, Noah could not help but want to cover his face. I feel so ashamed that I want to die. As soon as he finished speaking, Noah felt an extremely intense gaze on him, causing his body to stiffen. He slowly turned his head and looked at the side of the bed. He saw that at the side of the bed, there were 2 petite girls with silvery white hair that was as soft as the moonlight. One of them stared at Noah without moving her gaze away, while the other had a smile that was not a smile, looking very happy. The one who stared at Noah was the girl with long hair that reached her waist. Moreover, the other party's gaze was somewhat sharp, causing Noah to feel a slight prickling pain on his skin. Under the girl's intense gaze, Noah's face was unnatural. Why did you come out? Silence. No one answered Noah's question. It was precisely because of this that Noah felt even more uncomfortable. After a while, Athena showed a carefree smile. Since ancient times, it has always been the privilege of pure young girls to offer their longing and love to heroes. From this point of view, my fated one, you have the potential to become a hero. In one sentence, Noah completely understood. The 2 elf girls clearly saw what had just happened. The corners of Noah's mouth twitched. Under such circumstances, Aster continued to stare fixedly at Noah. His face did not reveal the slightest trace of emotion, but this caused Noah to feel a sense of dread. Noah could only reply cautiously. Aster? Aster ignored Noah and continued to stare silently at Noah, giving Noah a lot of pressure. All right, Sacred Sword Fairy, Athena said in a bored tone. No matter what, that person is still your master. Your attitude is a little too disrespectful. I don't need you to remind me, Divine Sword Fairy, Aster finally spoke, but although his voice was unusually sweet, there was a hint of boldness. I am Master's sword. Everything will go according to Master's wishes. At this point, Aster stared at Noah again. Undoubtedly, I also have the right to become Master's possession. When he said this, Aster's voice began to carry some emotion. Thus, Noah understood. Aster, you're at odds. Obviously, the matter of Wendy wanting to become Noah's bride had caused this jealous elf girl to explode. Undoubtedly, when Mira and Lisanna were together, they did not display such feelings. Why was it different when it came to Wendy? Also, when it came to existences like Lestia and Pest, Aster would also display an unusual competitive mentality. On the other hand, Aster did not care about characters like Luo Hao at all. What kind of logic was this? Could it be that Ace had a habit of only looking at girls who were about the same age as him? Noah was speechless and could only ask. What's the matter with possession? Didn't that dragon girl say that she wanted to become Master's bride? Aster said as if it was a matter of fact. According to my memory, in human customs, that means that a woman wants to become a man's possession. Is that wrong? No, although there are some parts that are not wrong, there are some that are ridiculously wrong, Noah ridiculed. Furthermore, Aster, didn't you become my possession long ago? Aster immediately went silent. After a while, Aster expressionlessly spoke. I forgot. Noah's body lost all strength and he collapsed on the bed, unable to get up again. On the other hand, Aster seemed to have only just recalled this matter and his expression suddenly became cheerful. Right, I'm already Master's possession. Therefore, even if that dragon girl wants to become Master's possession, she can only be beneath me. Noah really wanted to tell Aster that the two of them were not the same. However, when he saw Aster's mysterious eyes surging with excitement, Noah decided to keep his mouth shut and let Aster's imagination run wild. Athena pouted at Noah's reaction. You've really been working hard. Lying on the bed, Noah couldn't help but sigh. Who could he blame for this? Athena had been looking at Noah's direction, her cold and bewitching snake-like eyes flickered. Seems like you've sorted out your emotions. Noah raised an eyebrow at the words that came out of nowhere. Then, he understood what was going on. I see, so this is the reason why you two didn't come out all this time? Ever since they came out from the world between and entered this world, Aster and Athena hadn't transformed into human form for 2 whole months. If Noah didn't take the initiative to talk to them, they wouldn't even talk to Noah. At first, Noah felt that it was a little strange, but now it seemed like it was Aster and Athena's thoughtfulness. Even if it's you, suddenly taking on the responsibility of saving thousands of worlds and knowing your unusual origin, you would feel confused too, right? Athena said nonchalantly. I just felt that you should have some time to sort out your emotions, so I'm observing from the side. I was just hindered by this divine sword elf. Aster looked straight at Noah. I wanted to come out earlier to accompany Master. The rational and emotional words of the two elves warmed Noah's heart, and he couldn't help but smile. I'm sorry for making you two worry. Yes. Aster nodded and said resolutely. I'm Master's sword, so please take care of yourself, Master. No matter what, you're still the Master we serve, Athena said as she gazed out the window at the beautiful night sky. Let's not talk about the divine sword elf. Other than being your contracted elf, I'm also your power. If something happens to you, I won't be able to live either, right? It's the same for me, Aster refuted Athena, then lowered his head and said softly. Only Master can use me. If Master is no longer around, then seeing Aster's expression turning sorrowful, Noah reached out his hand and stroked Aster's head. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Aster nodded, and the sadness on his face faded away. Noah looked at Aster, who was obediently standing in front of him, and then at Athena, who was looking at the night sky outside the window. He silently made up his mind. Even if it was just for the two elves who couldn't bear to lose him, he had to overcome the difficulties and win in the end. Even if his opponent was an extraordinary existence, it would still be the same. Chapter 1649. Crocas. It was the most prosperous city in the Fiori Kingdom. Unlike Magnolia, this city was widely known as the City of Flowers. Because there were all kinds of beautiful and delicate flowers blooming all year round, it could be said to be a beautiful city famous for flowers. Entering the city, the first thing people saw was often the flowers blooming in every corner of every street. On the streets surrounded by all kinds of flowers, the phenomenon of people coming and going was very common. Amidst the sea of people on the streets, some of them even exuded a mysterious aura that was hard to detect. That was magic. In this bustling city of flowers, archmages could be seen everywhere. There were two reasons for such a grand occasion. 1. This city called Crocus was the capital of the Fiori Kingdom. In other words, this was the location of the palace of the Fiori Kingdom, and it was also the city where the king and the nobles lived. Of course, as the center of the Fiori Kingdom, there was no reason for Crocus not to be bustling, and this was also part of the reason why archmages gathered here. 2. The annual Great Demonic Battle Tournament that determined the ranking of the various guilds in the Fiori Kingdom was held in this city. This was the real reason why archmages could be seen everywhere on the streets. There was only one day before the Great Demonic Battle Tournament officially began. Tomorrow would be the day when the Great Demonic Battle Tournament officially began. Therefore, archmages from various guilds in the kingdom began to gather in this city, including Fairy Tale. Finally, Naz, whose face was ashen, fell directly in the middle of the street. There was no other reason, it was just because he was carsick. Ugh, Gadjaloo, who was carrying a luggage, also fell down, his face as ugly as Naz's. Looking at Naz and Gadjaloo who fell neatly on the street, Lucy was puzzled. It's fine if it's Naz, but why is Gadjaloo also carsick? This was also the question of the others. Therefore, everyone's attention was focused on Julian. As a member of the same guild as Gadjaloo and a member of Fairy Tale, no one knew Gadjaloo better than Julian. Zhu Bien doesn't know either. Noticing that his companions were looking at him, Zhu Bien quickly waved his hand and shook his head. There was no such problem in the past. Really? Elusha frowned slightly. Then what is going on? For the time being, someone has helped Brother Naz and Brother Gadjaloo to cast a spell that can heal their sense of balance, Wendy said weakly. However, there's a limit to the duration of magic. Furthermore, if I keep using it, the duration will become shorter and shorter. There's nothing I can do about it. Could it be a common problem among all Dragon Slayer archmages? Gray mentioned in a seemingly bored manner. Aren't those two dragon-slaying archmages? Speaking of which. Freed looked at Laxus. Laxus seems to get carsick too, right? The group of companions suddenly turned their surprised eyes to Laxus. Freed. Laxus glared at Freed. Don't say anything unnecessary. In other words, Freed's words were just unnecessary and not false. It can't be, right? Gray himself was surprised. Is it really a common problem among all Dragon Slayer archmages? But Wendy doesn't seem to. Mira tilted her head. Isn't Wendy also a Dragon Slayer archmage? What? Do you suspect that Wendy is not a Dragon Slayer archmage? Xia Lulu immediately bared her teeth and defended her. Don't look down on others. Xia Lulu, no one said that. Habai quickly tried to please her. Maybe Wendy secretly helped herself to use magic to heal her sense of balance. No, I didn't do that. Wendy shook her head. Similarly, I don't have any symptoms of motion sickness. All of a sudden, everyone fell into a dilemma again. Looking at the group of companions who were in a dilemma because of Naz and Gadjaloo's problems, Noah couldn't help but feel at a loss whether to laugh or cry. He didn't expect that Naz, Gadjaloo, and even Laxus all had the common problem of motion sickness. This was an unexpected weakness. Is it really a common problem among Dragon Slayer archmages? But Wendy seems to be fine. Thinking of this, Noah glanced in Wendy's direction. Coincidentally, Wendy also secretly looked at Noah and suddenly met Noah's gaze. Suddenly, Wendy's pretty face turned red and she lowered her head shyly. Obviously, what happened last night was also a big challenge for the pure, kind, and timid Wendy. I wonder when Wendy will be able to return to her usual appearance. Otherwise, wouldn't it be difficult for Noah to even talk to Wendy? At this time, Makarov came from the other end of the street with the rest of the members. Okay, the registration is over. Makarov looked around at everyone. Now, we just have to wait for the Great Demon Wars to officially start. Is it over just like that? Noah stepped forward and asked. Nothing else needs to be done. Right, the officials didn't make any announcements, they just told us to pay attention to one thing. Makarov raised a finger. Before 12:00 in the morning, the contestants who need to participate in the Great Demon Wars must stay in the designated hotel. Designated hotel? Elusha also stepped forward. In other words, the residences of the contestants and guild members will be separated? That's right. Makarov took out 2 small pieces of paper and handed them to Noah and Elusha. These are the designated hotels for your A and B teams. Before 12:00 in the morning, you must all stay there, understood? Noah and Elusha both nodded, took the small pieces of paper with the addresses, and returned to the team. Then, you guys are free to arrange the rest of the time. Makarov's expression relaxed, and he said in a casual manner. As long as you reach the designated location before 12:00 in the morning, that's fine. The members of the guild immediately beamed with joy. Among the people present, there were less than 10 who had been to Krokas before. Naturally, it wasn't that they weren't interested in the famous city of flowers. Thus, everyone gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, and dispersed to various corners of the city to have fun. I'll go take a look at the hotel first. Elusha looked at Noah and smiled. Good luck, Noah. You too. Noah returned a smile. Don't get into trouble. Don't worry. Elusha nodded, turned around, and left swiftly. I'll go take a look at the hotel with Lisanna, Mira said to Noah. Noah, go play by yourself. Okay. Noah replied helplessly, making Mira and Lisanna burst into laughter. Then, they left together. In the blink of an eye, everyone left and scattered. Even Naz and Gadjalu, who had collapsed on the street, were dragged away. In the end, only 2 people and 1 cat remained at the scene. One was Noah. The other was Wendy. The remaining cat was naturally Xia Lulu. The atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward. Wendy stole a glance at Noah, her pretty face blushing slightly. She lowered her head, and shyly looked at her fingers. Noah scratched his cheek and laughed dryly. Looking at Noah and Wendy, Xia Lulu furrowed her brows and said coldly, What are you doing? Did the 2 of you do something behind my back? This sentence made Noah and Wendy feel guilty. Seeing this, Xia Lulu's eyes became extremely sinister. Feeling that he would be interrogated if this continued, Noah quickly changed the topic and said to Wendy. Wendy, how about we go for a walk too? Wendy nodded repeatedly. The 2 of them immediately gathered together and hurried forward. Wait. Xia Lulu was shocked and chased after them in exasperation. Don't think about leaving me behind. Thus, Noah, Wendy, and Xia Lulu went far away together. No one noticed. On the roof of a building far away from the street, a small black shadow had been looking down, opening its mouth and laughing. Chapter 1650. Hey! What exactly did you guys do behind my back? Hurry up and tell me. That male over there. Don't tell me you really did something to Wendy. Wendy, tell me honestly, what exactly happened between the 2 of you? Did you guys hear what I said? On one of the streets in Kolochas, Xia Lulu, who had a pair of white wings on her back, asked frantically while flying. Noah and Wendy, who were walking in front, couldn't help but cover their ears in annoyance. However, Xia Lulu acted as if she didn't notice anything. She just kept asking questions. Finally, Wendy couldn't take it anymore. "Xia Lulu," Wendy said in a pleasant tone. "I told you, there's really nothing going on. Do you think you can hide it from me?" Xia Lulu didn't buy it at all. "If nothing happened, why would the atmosphere between the two of you be so weird? I say, just because the atmosphere is weird, does it mean that you guys did something wrong?" Noah couldn't help but interrupt. "Maybe I saw Wendy accidentally when she was changing her clothes." "Eh?" Wendy cried out in surprise, her pretty face turning red. "What did you say?" Xia Lulu's eyes widened. Then, she pounced on Noah's face crazily. "I'll scratch you to death, you evil male." After saying that, Xia Lulu's pair of hands really stretched out a few sharp claws. Without saying anything, she scratched at Noah's face. Presumably, being scratched by those claws, even if his skin and flesh didn't split open, there would at least be a few ugly red marks on his face. Noah was taken aback. He reflexively reached out his hand and slapped him. Slap! With a crisp sound, Xia Lulu let out a mournful cry as she was sent flying. Seeing that Xia Lulu was about to fly out, Wendy was shocked. She raised her hand and caught Xia Lulu with much difficulty. She hugged Xia Lulu and heaved a sigh of relief. Ugh! Xia Lulu's eyes began to turn, but she was still extremely unwilling to admit defeat. "Wendy, did you see that? This violent male is not worthy of your love." "No, there's no such thing," Wendy retorted without any hesitation. "Big brother Noah is very gentle. He is not violent at all. You only know how to speak up for that male." Xia Lulu glared at Noah. "This guy already has 2 fiancées, and he's about to get married, yet he still came to provoke you. Not only is he violent, he's also a playboy." "You can't say that about Big Brother Noah, Xia Lulu," Wendy said angrily. "Although Big Brother Noah is indeed a bit of a playboy, if he wasn't, wouldn't I have no chance?" The corner of Noah's eyes twitched. He was speechless. Wendy seemed to have just realized what she had said. She blushed and became flustered. I didn't mean that. I'm just glad that Big Brother Noah is a playboy." No, I'm not glad that Big Brother Noah is a playboy. Even if Big Brother Noah is a playboy, I don't mind at all." "No, it's not like that either." Noah only felt that his chest was pierced by a few arrows, causing his heart to ache. He hurriedly stopped Wendy from continuing. All right, you don't have to say any more. I understand what you mean." Is that so?" Wendy heaved a huge sigh of relief and patted her chest. "That's good." "Idiot," Xia Lulu said in exasperation. "If you continue like this, you'll be eaten up by that guy sooner or later." "No. There's no such thing," Wendy retorted weakly. Just like this, Wendy hugged Xia Lulu, and the two directly entered the stage of quarreling. Noah, who felt that he had been forgotten, could only touch his nose resentfully, but he didn't dare to say anything more. After all, Noah was originally in a disadvantageous position on this topic, and there were 2 brides who were about to be married. No matter how he explained, it would be useless, right? Noah simply lowered his presence and let Wendy and Xia Lulu quarrel. He laughed and shook his head as he followed behind the person and the cat, and continued to walk. It was also at this moment that Noah suddenly felt something. He felt a strong sense of malice. Noah's eyes suddenly froze, and his footsteps became sluggish. He turned his head abruptly and looked to the side. There was a small alley there. Even in the day, the alley was very dark. However, Noah clearly saw a small black shadow darting into the alley and disappearing without a trace. Wendy, who was quarreling with Xia Lulu, felt Noah's abnormality. She turned her head and looked at Noah strangely. "Brother Noah? What's wrong?" "Nothing." Noah stared at the dark alley, not looking at Wendy, and said directly to Wendy. "Sorry, Wendy, I'll leave first. If you don't have anything else to do, remember to go back to the hotel directly. Also, don't wander around where there's no one, okay? Wendy, who didn't know what happened, was confused, but she still realized something from Noah's expression, and nodded obediently. I know, Brother Noah, I'll go back to the hotel directly. Good girl. Noah patted Wendy's head. Then, he suddenly started running and rushed into a dark alley at the side. Seeing Noah disappear into the alley, Wendy lowered her head and said to Xia Lulu in her arms. Then, Xia Lulu, let's go back directly. You really listened to that male. Xia Lulu muttered with some dissatisfaction, but didn't object. Although she was unhappy that Wendy kept circling around Noah, but Xia Lulu's intention was for Wendy's good. And just now, Noah obviously noticed something. If Wendy continued to stay here, there was no benefit. So, even if Xia Lulu was unhappy, she wouldn't object. So, Wendy and Xia Lulu walked towards the hotel. On the other side, Noah was moving at an extraordinary speed in the dark alley. Although the ability points were left in Between Worlds to upgrade, allowing Noah's physical ability to return to the state when he didn't have any ability points, Noah had trained in the deep mountains for a few years. During those years, Noah mainly trained in magic, and didn't train his physical ability much. But even so, he was still much stronger than the average person. If the strengthening of the protozoan virus hadn't been absorbed by the authority, I should be even stronger now. Noah stared ahead. But anyway, there's magic to strengthen it, so there's no difference. Just as Noah was about to use magic to strengthen his legs and rush forward to see if he could catch up to something, another presence suddenly approached him. Before Noah could turn around, the air trembled. Immediately, pieces of human-shaped paper suddenly descended from the air and lined up neatly. Like flowing water, they streaked across the air and rushed in the direction of Noah. In the blink of an eye, the neatly arranged pieces of human-shaped paper flew around Noah, and like chains, they wrapped around Noah and tied him up. Clank. Then, the pieces of human-shaped paper that were tightly attached to Noah's body bloomed with a purple light. They were blooming from the strange characters drawn on the pieces of paper. Noah suddenly felt an invisible binding force pass through the pieces of human-shaped paper and onto his body. At that moment, Noah narrowed his eyes and didn't resist. He raised his head and looked at the shadow in front of him. Come out, you sneaky bastard. The voice spread clearly in the dark alley. Then, a sinister laugh sounded. As expected of the next president of Fairy Tale, you can still be so calm in this situation. No wonder that old guy Makarov took you in as his adopted grandson. Accompanied by such a sinister laugh, a man slowly walked out from the shadow in front of him. A man in his 30s or 40s, with a black crew cut and an extremely thick black beard. Chapter 1651. Noah frowned as he watched the cold man slowly walk out from the dark corner. For some reason, Noah felt like he had seen this man somewhere before. Noah opened his mouth coldly. Who are you? Oh. You don't know me? Didn't Makarov and Laxus mention me to you? The cold man pretended to shrug his shoulders. How cold? No matter what, we can still be considered as a family. Family? Noah's frown deepened as a mocking expression appeared on his face. Sorry, I don't remember having such a shady family member. My family members are all open and above-board people. They don't have people like you who do sneaky things. The cold man's expression suddenly froze as he looked at Noah with a gloomy gaze. As expected of the successor of that old man Makarov. Even that superior attitude is exactly the same. It's really unpleasant. If it wasn't for the fact that I still want to know some important things from you, I really want to torture you a little. Cut the crap. Noah questioned. Who are you? Then, let me introduce myself. The cold man spread his hands and smiled sinisterly. My name is Ivan Dole. You should understand now, right? Dole? Noah was stunned at first, then his pupils shrank. Noah finally knew why he felt like he had seen this man somewhere before. When he was young, he was just adopted by Makarov. Before he lived in the guild, Noah had seen this man's photo in Makarov and Lax's house. It was a family photo. Of course, the people in the photo were a family. There were a total of 3 people in that family. One was Makarov, who had just entered his old age. The other was Lax's when he was young. The last person was also a man. Makarov's biological son. Lax's biological father. He used to be a member of Fairy Tale, but he did something that harmed the guild. In the end, he was mercilessly kicked out of the guild by Makarov. That man's name was Ivan. Ivan Dorothea. I see. Noah looked at Ivan closely. You're Grandpa's disappointing son? Don't say that, little Noah. Ivan smiled sinisterly. No matter what, I am still your father. Before Ivan could finish his sentence, he was immediately interrupted by Noah. Don't say anything else. Noah looked at Ivan with a sharp glint in his eyes and said with a spurious smile. After all, if I really have a father like you, I'm afraid I won't be able to resist. It could be said that Noah didn't have any good impression of Ivan. It wasn't just because Ivan had done something to endanger the entire fairy tale, but also because of what he had done after being expelled from the guild. After being kicked out of the guild, it was said that Ivan didn't join any other guild, but created his own guild. That guild was called Raven Tail. It was a dark guild. Originally, the dark guilds that were active in the underground were basically under the Baram Alliance. However, Raven Tail was independent of the Baram Alliance, hiding alone in the border and secretly developing. Makarov specifically investigated this guild. As a result, although Raven Tail didn't do anything to kill or set fire, it did do a lot of sneaky things. Just like what Noah said, it was a guild that gathered all kinds of rascals. And Ivan was the leader of these rascals. One could imagine how Noah felt about such a person. If Ivan really shamelessly treated him as his father, then Noah really didn't know what he would do. Perhaps he saw something from Noah's eyes. Ivan couldn't help but take a few steps back. Then he realized that he had a trace of fear towards Noah, and became angry out of humiliation. Let's see how long you can maintain your stubbornness. After saying that, Ivan formed a hand seal. Beep beep beep. Suddenly, on the human-shaped paper that tightly bound Noah and stuck to Noah's body, the mysterious characters that were blooming with purple light actually exploded into balls of electric light, causing electric current to suddenly appear and violently run through Noah's body. Following the violent flow of electric current, Noah actually felt a sharp pain, which surprised him. You think I don't know that you have the power to nullify magic? Ivan said proudly. When you annihilated the 6 demon generals, oration cease, the information about this power of yours had already reached my ears. Otherwise, why would I come to you knowing that magic would be nullified? Not only that, I also know that magic will only be nullified if it's directed at you. Ivan laughed loudly. So, the paper wrapped around you is just an ordinary piece of paper. The words engraved on the paper are magic, and the electric current is ordinary electric current stored by magic. It's not generated by magic. That's why it can harm you, right? In other words, Ivan didn't use magic against Noah from beginning to end. The paper wrapped around Noah's body was just a normal paper, and the characters engraved on it were magic that strengthened the paper's hardness and toughness. The electric current that directly hit Noah's body was also not generated by magic, but normal electric current stored by magic, and now it was just released. This way, the paper could wrap around Noah, and the electric current could also harm Noah. Feeling the pain coming from all over his body, Noah clenched his fist, ignoring the electric current that was violently running through his body, and his sharp eyes looked straight at Ivan. What's your purpose? Hearing this, Ivan maintained the hand seal in his hand, and looked at Noah with a cold smile. I only have one purpose, and that is lumen starlight. Noah's pair of eyes suddenly tightened. Seeing Noah's expression clearly, Ivan was ecstatic. You really do know about the existence of lumen starlight. I knew that Makarov would definitely tell you about it. After all, he already announced that you will be the next president. Ivan, with a face full of ecstasy, couldn't help but take a few steps closer to Noah's direction, and raised his voice. Tell me, where is Lumen Starlight? Noah ignored Ivan's excitement, and only stared at Ivan, and said in a deep voice. Why do you know about the existence of that thing? Grandfather couldn't possibly have told you about it, right? Lumen Starlight. That was something that absolutely could not be known by the world. Makarov had always said so. The only people who could know about the existence of Lumen Starlight were the past presidents of Fairy Tale. Therefore, the people who knew about the existence of Lumen Starlight, including Noah, should only be 4 people. The first president, Mavis. The second president, Prekto. The third president, Makarov. And the future 5th president, Noah. Apart from the above 4 people, even Makarov, the 4th president, didn't know about this matter, and Laxas, who was Makarov's grandson, also didn't know about it. That being the case, how did Ivan know about the existence of Lumen Starlight? That kind of thing, it doesn't matter. Ivan said agitatedly. Hurry up and tell me where Lumen Starlight is. Seeing that Ivan's emotions were starting to lose control, Noah narrowed his eyes, and his voice became emotionless. It seems that there is no way to get more information. Ivan suddenly froze. At this time, Noah's whole body shook. Pung! The paper wrapped around Noah's body and the electricity in the explosion all suddenly exploded. Chapter 1652. Bang! Amidst the loud explosion, the paper wrapped around Noah's body and the electric current on Noah's body exploded, creating a strong gust of wind that blew towards the surroundings. Dong! Ivan didn't even have time to react. His entire body was viciously slammed into by the sudden shockwave. With a heavy muffled thud, he flew backwards and slammed heavily into a wall. The double impact from the front and the back directly caused Ivan to spit out all the air in his chest. The vision in front of him was distorted, and he was extremely dizzy. Then, Ivan heard this sentence. What's wrong? Is this all you're left with after being defeated by your little tricks? Ivan raised his head with difficulty and looked ahead. There, Noah was pulling off a piece of paper in the shape of a human that was draped over his shoulder. He looked at Ivan with an extremely calm gaze. However, it was that incomparably calm gaze that caused Ivan's entire face to stiffen. It was only then that Ivan realized. On Noah's body, streaks of electric wiring were fading away bit by bit. Indeed, if you don't use magic directly against me, your little tricks can still be of some use against me. Noah patted the dust off his body and glanced at Ivan. But, at best, it can only be of some use. When will you be able to produce magic that can be of use against me? Ivan's expression changed drastically. At this moment, Ivan recalled a very important matter. That was, even if the power of magic immunity was excluded, the man in front of him was still one of the top magic shooters in Fairy Tale, and even stood at the peak. According to the information that Ivan knew, the man in front of him had many achievements. He killed Joseph, who was once one of the top 10 Saint Magic shooters and was on the same level as Makarov. He defeated Jalal, who was also one of the top 10 Saint Magic shooters and sneaked into the old council in the form of a consciousness. With the power of one person, he annihilated the entire 6 demon generals. Oration cease. Even Laxas had lost to Noah more than once. Elusha and Mira both claimed that they were no match for him. Kildas claimed that he no longer had the confidence to defeat him. Even Hades, who was closest to the abyss of the demonic path and had comprehended the true meaning of darkness, had been killed by Noah. Not only did the man in front of him have the power to nullify magic, he was also a monster. The fact that magic was effective against him was only because they had the qualifications to make him attack. It was not a reason that they could guarantee victory. You don't even understand such a simple thing, and you dare to make a vow in front of me? Noah looked down at Ivan, who was paralyzed on the ground, and mocked. How did Grandpa give birth to such a stupid guy like you? You. Ivan's face twisted. Since you took the initiative to come to me, don't blame me for being rude, Noah said indifferently. Where did you get the information about lumen starlight? I will ask you myself. Saying such a sentence, Noah's eyes became a little dangerous. No matter what method I use. Wait. Wait. Ivan hurriedly raised his hand and shouted loudly. I am Makarov's son, Laxus's father, you can't treat me like this. Is that so? Noah looked at Ivan with a somewhat pitiful gaze. If that's the case, let me tie you up in front of Grandpa and Laxus. Let's see how they will treat you after seeing your ugly appearance. Ivan's eyes widened. When he realized that Noah was not joking, he became furious. You want to tie me up in front of Makarov and Laxus? Don't even think about it. After saying this, Ivan raised 2 fingers, put them together and formed a hand seal. His whole body fluctuated with magical power. Bang! Almost at the same time, Noah abruptly stomped on the ground. With a heavy stomp, he dashed in front of Ivan. Wah! Ivan was shocked. But, at this time, it was too late to react. He saw that Noah suddenly turned around and kicked Ivan's chest heavily. Bang! Accompanied by a muffled sound, Ivan was violently kicked out. Friction with the air, he flew directly out of the alley and onto the street. He forcefully smashed into a stall, smashing it into pieces. On the busy street, the crowd of pedestrians was shocked. What? What happened? Fight? Is someone fighting? Don't tell me it's those Magic Guide Guild. Where's the law enforcement team? Hurry up and call the law enforcement team. The pedestrians on the street were in a mess, and they all moved away from the broken stalls by a certain distance, leaving an empty space and entering the spectator mode. Then, Noah slowly walked out of the alley and entered everyone's sight. Suddenly, the crowd started to discuss. Which guild sorcerer is that? Look, he has a guild's coat of arms. Which guild's coat of arms is that? Seems like I've seen it somewhere. Seems like a small guild that's not very famous. Ignoring the noise around him, Noah directly went in front of the smashed stall. He reached out and dragged Ivan, who was buried in it. At this time, the commotion around them intensified. A team of soldiers wearing standard armor and holding weapons neatly separated the crowd and barged in. The leader was a man who was more muscular than the rest of the soldiers. The armor on his body was also more exquisite. I'm the leader of the Sakura Knights of the Fiori Kingdom's army stationed in Kuroka's, Alcardios. The leader of the Sakura Knights, who called himself Alcardios, stared at Noah with his sharp eyes. Now is the time when the great demonic combat exhibition is about to begin. I've been appointed as the law enforcement team to be responsible for maintaining order on the streets and not let the Magic Guide Guild's dispute endanger the residents of Kuroka's. So, can you tell me why you're having a dispute? The kingdom's army? Noah turned his head and looked at Alcardios. Ivan, who was tightly grabbed by Noah by the collar, hurriedly shouted in the direction of the kingdom's army as if he had seen a savior. I'm the leader of the Raven Tail. The sorcerer of the fairy tale ambushed me in order to eliminate a strong opponent in the great demonic combat exhibition. That one sentence caused a commotion among the crowd. Is this for real? How dare he do that? That fairy tale that's always been at the bottom? Is this guild finally starting to resort to unscrupulous means to fight for a place? Not only the surrounding crowd, but even Noah was slightly taken aback by Ivan's words. Soon after, his gaze turned icy cold as he looked at Ivan. So that's how it is. Are you planning to pour dirty water on me and on Fairy Tale? In that instant, a heart-palpitating aura began to rise from Noah's body. Feeling that heart-palpitating aura, Ivan was scared out of his wits. That was because that heart-palpitating aura was mixed with some murderous intent. In other words, Noah wanted to kill Ivan. Save. Save me. Ivan struggled as he shouted in the direction of the kingdom's army. He wants to kill me. He wants to kill me. Instantly, the kingdom's army raised the weapons in their hands and pointed them in the direction of Noah. "Let go of the person in your hands." Alcardios took a step forward and spoke loudly to Noah. "If you don't accept the warning, I will arrest you for obstructing public order." "Arrest me?" Noah looked at Alcardios and smiled suddenly, but there was no smile in his eyes. "You can come and try." As soon as he finished speaking. A surge of magic rose from Noah's body without any warning, turning into a hurricane and blowing in all directions. Chapter 1653. Amidst the vibrations in the air, a surge of magic power erupted from Noah's body, turning into a raging gale that swept across the surroundings. The crowd could only feel an extremely terrifying pressure rising from Noah's body. Then, one by one, they revealed a horrified expression. The crowd of onlookers stood rooted to the ground with a stiff expression. The soldiers of the royal army gripped their weapons tightly, their hands trembling slightly. Alcardios's pupils contracted bit by bit. As for Ivan, his face was already covered in cold sweat. Under such circumstances, the magic power rising from Noah's body became more and more violent, causing an invisible energy current to sweep across the air. It was as if it had turned into a tangible pressure, violently suppressing the hearts of everyone present. At this moment, no one could open their mouths to speak. It was not that they did not want to speak, but it was as if their entire bodies were tightly bound, and they could not even open their mouths. Thus, on the entire street, a deathly stillness filled the air, making the atmosphere extremely strange. No one knew how long this scene lasted. At a certain moment, the massive magic power that swept across the air like a hurricane suddenly shrank back, retracting bit by bit into Noah's body until it completely disappeared. Then, Noah, who was holding tightly onto Ivan's collar, spoke calmly. "It's just a joke, don't take it seriously." After saying that, Noah released Ivan, causing Ivan to stumble and fall to the ground. He stared blankly at Noah, unable to react in time, and did not move for a long time. On the other hand, the surrounding crowd seemed to have relaxed as they heaved a huge sigh of relief and panted softly. It was only then that the crowd realized. It turned out that just now, everyone present had subconsciously held their breaths. "Captain Alcardios, right?" Noah acted as if nothing had happened, and asked as if he was talking to himself. Just now, this little person said that Fairy Tale wanted to exclude Raven Tail, who was a strong opponent in the Great Devil Battle exhibition. That is to say, Raven Tail also participated in the Great Devil Battle exhibition, right? "I'm not sure, the registration is not over yet." Alcardios was silent for a moment, and then replied in a deep voice. "So, the list of participants should not have been submitted to the organizers yet." "That's not important." Noah looked at Alcardios. "What's important is that Raventail is undoubtedly a dark guild, but can participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition." "What's going on?" Noah's words caused the crowd of onlookers around them. "Dark guild? Is that Raventail a dark guild? Seems like I've heard of it." "It can't. Dark guilds can participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition?" Under the discussion of the crowd, Alcardios coughed and replied. "Indeed, Raventail used to be a dark guild, but recently it was recognized by the council and became a regular guild. Therefore, there is no problem for them to participate in the Great Demonic Combat Arts competition." The crowd of onlookers suddenly understood. However, Noah sneered. "But when Raventail was still a dark guild, they once caused damage to Fairy Tale. Don't we have the right to take it back from this dark guild?" Hearing that, the crowd of onlookers was even more relieved. "So it's like that. In other words, Fairy Tale is only fighting against a dark guild that has a grudge with them? That's to be expected, right? But hasn't Raventail already become a regular guild? We don't know about this kind of thing, and Fairy Tale also doesn't know about it. So, even if they take action, it wouldn't be strange, right?" The crowd's discussion started to go in a direction that was beneficial to Fairy Tale. That was natural. After all, even if Fairy Tale was at the bottom of the list, it was still a proper guild. Even if it had many problems, it had never done anything that would harm the public. On the other hand, even though Raventail kept a low profile, it was still a dark guild. Therefore, it was already clear which side the crowd would stand on. Undoubtedly, it was a matter of no avail. Ivan cursed in his heart, and then shouted at the people around him. "Oh no! Everyone! Everyone, don't listen to this guy. We have never done anything to Fairy Tale." "Is that so?" Noah glanced at Ivan. "Those in the know that you, Ivan Doria, were once a member of Fairy Tale, but because you did something that harmed our guild, you were expelled from the guild by our guild leader. Do you want to deny this matter?" Ivan was speechless. Seeing Ivan like this, the surrounding crowd started to discuss in low voices. "Seems like it's true. In the end, he is still a member of a dark guild. Sure enough, his actions are not clean." All of a sudden, Ivan became the target of public criticism. He was being pointed at by the surrounding residents of Crocus, and his expression was as ugly as it could get. "Guild leader Alcardios, I don't think I need to explain the reason why we had a conflict, right?" Noah shrugged. "What Fairy Tale wants to eliminate a strong opponent in the Great Demon Combat Arts Exhibition competition? It's just this villain who is spreading rumors and causing trouble." You are lying." Ivan's face turned red. "Everyone, don't be fooled by him. I am the victim. He really wanted to kill me just now." "You are right, I really want to kill you." Noah's mouth slowly curved into a cold arc. "I have no mercy for you who has designs on our guild. If there is a chance, I will definitely kill you." The resolute words made Ivan's body tremble, and finally, he shrank back. At this moment, there was only one emotion in Ivan's heart. And that was regret. He regretted that when he knew that Noah was the next guild leader of Fairy Tale, he couldn't help but immediately find trouble with him. However, how could this be blamed on Ivan? The allure of lumen, starlight, was simply too great for the average person. Possessing the lumen starlight was equivalent to possessing everything. Using magic that would never be exhausted, whether it was providing magic as a source of energy, selling it, creating great wealth, or developing magic weapons that required a large amount of magic, invading and occupying the continent's territory, and creating great power, it was all within reach. Ivan was not a saint, but a guy whose desire was higher than ordinary people. Knowing that there was such a thing in Fairy Tale, how could he not have designs on it? It could only be said that greed clouded Ivan's mind, so Ivan didn't notice how difficult it was to deal with Noah. Now, the situation has become very unfavorable for Ivan. Understanding this, Ivan gritted his teeth, turned around, directly pushed through the crowd, and left dejectedly. Ivan didn't notice this. Behind him, Noah was staring at his back, his eyes flashing. And Noah also didn't notice this. Behind him, Alcardios was also staring at his back, and there was a thoughtful look in his eyes. In the surrounding crowd, there was another person watching this scene. Looking at Noah standing in the middle of the crowd, a girl holding a katana tightened her grip on the weapon in her hand and whispered softly. "Is he Noah Dole?" asked Joshua. Chapter 1654. What? In the designated hotel of Fairy Tale B, Makarov stood up from his seat and roared in anger. Ivan, that guy, actually did such a thing? Not only Makarov, but even Laxes, who was sitting on the sofa next to him, had a gloomy look on his face as he smacked his lips. That bastard of a dad, looking at Makarov and Laxes, one with a furious face and the other with a gloomy face, Noah just crossed his arms and didn't say anything. After all, Ivan was Makarov's son and Laxes' father. Regarding Ivan's actions, these two people were the most affected. The rest of the people didn't have the right to interrupt. Including Noah. Because of this, among the people present, other than Noah, Mira and Julian also didn't say anything. Only Gadula didn't know how to read the atmosphere at all and directly asked Noah. But why would the guild leader of Raven Tail look for trouble with you? Don't tell me it's just to find fault with Fairy Tail? Hearing this, everyone present cast their eyes on Noah. It was no wonder that everyone had this question. After returning to the hotel, although Noah told them that Ivan was looking for trouble with him, he didn't tell them the reason why Ivan was looking for trouble with him. Because it already involved the matter of Lumen Starlight, so it couldn't be said casually. Therefore, Noah just looked at Makarov and sighed. Ivan is because of the thing in the basement. With one sentence, Makarov's face completely changed. The thing in the basement? The rest of the people were confused and could only look at each other. That guy. Makarov's face was uncertain. How did he know about the existence of that thing? I don't know. Noah shook his head. I can only think of one possibility, that is, someone else told him. That can't be. Makarov subconsciously wanted to refute, but then he thought of something. His face sank and he clenched his fist. Precto. Noah nodded and let Makarov close his eyes. That's right. How did Ivan know about the existence of Lumen Starlight? It could only be Precto, that is, Hades, told him. The only people who knew about the existence of Lumen Starlight were Noah, Mavis, Hades, and Makarov. Since that was the case, among the four people, who was the most likely to reveal information about Lumen Starlight, there was no need to guess. No matter what, Hades had already fallen into darkness, and was the same as Ivan, the leader of a dark guild. Therefore, it was not impossible for Ivan to obtain information about Lumen Starlight from Hades. Also, according to what I know, Ivan's Raven Tail has already become a formal guild and is also participating in the Great Demon Battle exhibition this year. Noah said to Makarov. If he really has designs on that thing, then I feel that we need to be on guard against what Raven Tail will do during the Great Demon Battle exhibition. I understand. Makarov took a deep breath and nodded solemnly. I will warn Alusha's side and tell them to be careful not to fall into Raven Tail's trap. Then, how should we deal with Ivan? Noah went straight to the point. Since he knows about the existence of that thing, if we don't think of a way to deal with him, I think he will definitely continue to pester us. It doesn't matter if he pesters us. Makarov lowered his voice was filled with anger. But, if he plans to pester our family, then I definitely can't sit back and do nothing. Noah naturally agreed. If Ivan only looked for trouble with Noah, then Noah could easily get rid of him. But if Ivan had designs on the entire fairy tale, then Noah would definitely not leave him alone. So, Grandfather, I only want to ask a question. Noah looked straight at Makarov. If it is really necessary, can I make a move? Makarov immediately went silent. But, in the next second, Makarov spoke without any hesitation. If that Ivan guy really causes harm to the rest of our guild members, then you don't have to spare him on my account. His words without hesitation made everyone fall into silence. Noah just turned his gaze and looked at Laxus. Don't look at me like that. Laxus crossed his arms, his expression didn't even change. You are the guild leader. Since that bastard dad is targeting our guild, how to deal with him is up to you. Noah first looked at Makarov, then looked at Laxus. After seeing that there was no change in their expressions, he nodded. I understand. If necessary, I will personally deal with Ivan. Makarov and Laxus didn't say anything else. Seeing this, although Mira, Julian, and Gadjalu were still somewhat confused, at least they knew that this matter had been discussed. The only thing they didn't understand was one thing. That. Julian said with some unease. The thing in the basement, what is it? I'm sorry. Makarov didn't even open his eyes as he said so. This is the guild's highest secret. Only the guild leader knows. I hope you won't ask any more. Everyone looked at each other and could only nod their heads. Then, I'll go to Alusha's place. Makarov stood up and looked at the time. It's not long before 12 o'clock. Don't leave the hotel, understand? Understood. Everyone responded. Makarov's expression became slightly better. He turned around and walked out of the hotel. Only Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxes, and Gadjaloo were left. The five of them fell into silence. After a while, Mira took a step forward and spoke with a sweet smile that was extremely healing. "All right, everyone, let's not think about other things. Now, let's think about how to win in the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition." "Yes. Yes." Julian hurriedly agreed. "Besides Raventail, we still have a lot of enemies." "Enemies?" Gadjaloo grinned. "I love enemies the most. It's useless to think so much now." Laxes glanced at Noah. "It's more practical to think about the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition first." "I know what you want to say." Noah couldn't help but laugh. "Don't worry, I won't lose my composure. Just like what Julian said, we already have a lot of enemies. The Raventail is just a rat hiding in the dark. Before it comes out, we'll just wait and see what happens." Just as Noah's voice fell, a strange phenomenon occurred. Ding dong ding dong ding dong ding dong. A bell-like sound suddenly reverberated in the entire space, turning into an echo that resounded through the entire sky of Crocus. "What's wrong?" Mira asked in surprise. "What's going on?" "Everyone, look." Julian pointed at the clock in the room. "It's already 12 o'clock. Only then did everyone realize that it was already 12 o'clock. "Humph," Laxes stood up. "So there's a reason why we have to stay in the hotel until 12 o'clock. "Hey!" Gadjaloo shouted at everyone. "There seems to be something outside." Noah's gaze immediately looked out of the window. In the next second, everyone saw it. In the sky above Coloca's, an extremely large projection abruptly appeared. "Yo, hee. Greetings, sorcerers from all over the Fiori Kingdom." Before they could see the full appearance of the huge projection, a humorous voice sounded in the entire space. "Now, let the preliminaries of the Great Demonic Combat Arts Competition begin." Chapter 1655. Qualifiers. The loud voice from the sky stunned Noah, Mira, Julian, Laxes, and Gadjaloo. Qualifiers? There were qualifiers for the Great Demon Fights? Why hadn't they heard of it before? It wasn't just Noah's group. At this moment, all the contestants in the various hotels in Colochas had the same question. This was because in the previous Great Demon Fights, there had been no qualifiers. It had always been an official competition. Teams from various guilds from all over the Fiori Kingdom would compete directly in the venue of the Great Demon Fights. Teams would be eliminated according to the outcome of the competition. The guild that remained would be the number one guild in the Fiori Kingdom. The previous Great Demon Fights had always been like this. There was no such thing as a qualifier. This naturally caused the contestants from the various guilds to be puzzled. Amidst such doubts, Noah went to the balcony and raised his head to look at the sky. There was a huge three-dimensional image there. It was the image of a short person wearing a gorgeous clown costume with a huge pumpkin head on his head. This person was probably the referee of the Great Demon Fights. Under Noah's gaze, the pumpkin image used a humorous tone and exaggerated actions to explain to everyone in Colochas. "I know everyone must have a lot of doubts, but this can't be helped. There are too many teams participating in the Great Demon Fights this year. There are a total of 113 teams. If so many teams were to be squeezed together and compete, it would be difficult to arrange. Therefore, the conference has decided to hold a qualifier this year to eliminate the excess teams. In the end, only 8 teams will be left for the competition." 8 teams? Laxes's lips curled up slightly. In other words, teams that can't even pass the qualifiers can't even participate in the official competition, let alone obtain a ranking. "It seems like it will be very intense," Julian said uneasily. "I really hope we won't have to face so many guilds at once in the qualifiers." Hee. Gadjaloo raised his fingers and a terrifying smile appeared on his face. "Isn't it quite interesting? But wouldn't 113 teams be too many? Mira tilted her head and asked doubtfully. Are there so many guilds in the Fiori Kingdom? Probably because many guilds are like us and have noticed that the rules don't prohibit multiple teams from participating. Noah narrowed his eyes. So, many of the 113 teams are probably from the same guild. Everyone was enlightened. At this moment, the huge pumpkin image in the sky began to move again. Then, let's introduce the contents of the preliminaries to everyone. The pumpkin projection giggled. The rules are actually very simple. All the contestants will have to participate in the competition race. After saying that, the pumpkin projection pointed in a certain direction. The great demons SSSTSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSSS If it's just a normal competition speed, it would be too simple and boring. So, we've prepared a super great stage for everyone. As soon as the pumpkin projection finished speaking, the ground of the entire city of Coloches began to tremble slightly. Noah and the others who were in the hotel immediately started to sway. This was because the entire hotel was shaking as if it had encountered an earthquake. It was shaking non-stop. Then, the entire hotel suddenly rose from the ground. It wasn't because the hotel was flying, but because the ground beneath the hotel suddenly rose up and was lifted into the air by the mechanical stone pillars. It wasn't just the hotel that Noah and the others were in. There were quite a few hotels in Coloches. There were more than 100 hotels that were lifted into the air by the mechanical stone pillars. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 hotels rose to a height of more than 100 meters and became very conspicuous. When the hotels stopped, the tremors began to stop. Noah, who was carrying Mira, finally had the strength to look at the sky. Then, his eyes suddenly focused. What? What is that? Mira, Julian, Laxas, and Gadjaloo were all stunned. In the air, behind the gigantic pumpkin image, a gigantic sphere with a diameter of more than 1,000 meters had appeared out of nowhere. The sphere was made up of mechanical steel devices and intersecting corridors that were completely irregular. At first glance, it looked like a city in the shape of a sphere. At the same time, from the gigantic steel sphere, a flight of stairs that was suspended in the air began to extend, all the way to the front of the hotels that had risen into the air. That scene could be said to be extremely dreamy. Without the power of magic, who knew how long it would take for human technology to reach such a level? However, it was precisely because of magic that everything became extremely simple. Everyone, do you see that? That is the stage for the preliminaries that we have prepared for everyone. The gigantic pumpkin image cheerfully explained. The teams of the various guilds must pass through there to find the path to the giant egg, Flatbird, and head to the competition venue. Through this method, the first 8 teams to arrive will be determined to participate in the official competition of the Great Demonic Martial Arts Exhibition. Just like what everyone can see, that is a maze in the air. There is completely no pattern to follow. The pumpkin image explained very passionately. During the competition, each contestant can use magic as they wish, and can also use any method as they wish. Even killing your opponent is not a problem. Of course, the prerequisite is that you bear the responsibility yourselves. We, the assembly, do not bear any responsibility. We only have 2 requirements for everyone. The pumpkin image extended 2 fingers. First, each team must have 5 people. If one person is missing, even if you reach the finish line, you will be eliminated. Second, you cannot fall out of the maze in the air. Once you fall out of the maze in the air, you will also be eliminated. As long as you comply with the above 2 requirements, please do as you wish. The pumpkin image spread out its hands and declared loudly. Then, I announce that the preliminaries of the Great Demon Battle Exhibition competition has officially begun. After saying that, the pumpkin projection slowly dissipated into the air and completely disappeared. All of Coloches fell silent. Oh, 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 oh. In the next second, loud cheers rang out from the city. Those were the cheers of the citizens who were looking forward to the great demon battle demonstration, as well as the shouts of the various large guilds as they rushed up the floating staircase. However, Noah's group didn't move at all. They just looked at each other. As a result, other than Gadjaloo, the other four all smiled. Looks like this qualifier is in our favor. Noah looked at his other four companions. Apart from Gadjaloo, all of you should be able to fly, right? Myra's Satan's soul had wings. If Julian turned into water, he would be able to get rid of his human body and fly to a certain extent. Raxa's was even able to transform into lightning and fly at lightning-like speeds. Only Gadjaloo couldn't fly at all. Gadjaloo. Noah took off the wing-shaped necklace around his neck and tossed it to Gadjaloo. This is for you. What about you? Gadjaloo took the necklace and looked at Noah. Can you fly by yourself? Noah suddenly smiled. The energy in his body began to be released bit by bit. The invisible energy turned into an equally invisible force that allowed Noah's body to float bit by bit. This was a technique that Noah had unintentionally learned in the past 2 months of cultivation. By constantly releasing energy to counteract gravity and pressure, and then turning the energy into thrust, Noah could achieve autonomous flight. All right. Noah looked at the maze in the air. Let's go. Everyone nodded without any objections. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.